Yes.
The lead Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm coming to you by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back today at 12:45 of the War News Stream. It's good to see you all once again, and today we have massive news that Ukraine's exploded Russian air bases and power stations across Russia. We've also seen Poland warn citizens to escape Russia now, and Israel plans new strikes against Tehran coming up very soon, and we have very big news, and it's good to see you all once again.
And, of course, we're going to be covering the past 48 hours of news from around the world, as we've been able to hear significant developments from inside the Russian Federation, the Middle East, and also the United States of America over the course of the past 48 hours. But before we get into that tonight, I do want to make it clear that tonight we are seeing that Enforcer Matt is actually turning 25 years old. That is correct. It is actually Enforcer Matt's birthday today, so I just want to make sure to make that a little bit clear for everyone, considering that we always make it clear for both of our birthdays. And a big congratulations and happy birthday to Enforcer Matt, who just turned 25 years old today. But nevertheless, moving on into our major news of the night, we have been able to hear that inside the Russian Federation, it appears that the Russian Federation is suffering significant economic collapse at this moment due to heavy sanctions from the West, and not only that, coordinated Ukrainian strikes finally casting their toll, or largely effect, onto the Russian Federation's economy at large. We have also been able to hear in additional news as well inside the Middle East that it does appear that the Islamic Republic of Iran may be facing future strikes by the State of Israel here within the very near future, as we have been able to hear the Israeli government stating that they will be most likely moving forward with strikes against the Islamic Republic of Iran, and we have also been able to hear the Islamic Republic of Iran openly state that they will be continuing to work on nuclear enrichment of your refined uranium or enriched uranium to be able to use at a weapons grade. Outside of that, we have also been able to see that al-Jilani has attempted to cast all blame for the atrocities conducted in southern Syria on the Druze people, which largely were the target of genocides and crimes against humanity conducted by the Syrian interim government under the command of al-Jilani and the Syrian tribal armies within southern Syria. We have also been able to hear in significant news of a U.S. Security breach, as it appears that a Chinese national working for a firm in Los Angeles has actually stolen sensitive information worth hundreds of millions of dollars in terms of arms technology and is going to be causing a possible major security breach for a unknown company inside of the area of Los Angeles. Outside of that, we have also been able to hear that the state of Ukraine has conducted significant attacks inside of the Rostov Oblast today, targeting and destroying a significant amount of wartime materials and equipment, including power stations, railway stations, and the like throughout the Rostov Oblast. We have also been able to hear that the Ukrainian armed forces have been conducting a significant defense today on most fronts, and have also conducted a counteroffensive, particularly within the front of Konstyantynivka. We have a large amount of news to be covering over the course of the night, and quite a great deal of it. And so, making sure to move on into our first and major news of the night, we have been able to hear that inside the Middle East, it appears that the Israelis are preparing for significant strikes against the Islamic Republic of Iran here within the near future, and may also be joined by the United States of America, possibly, as we have been able to hear that the Islamic Republic of Iran, as of 48 hours ago, stated that they will not stop their uranium enrichment, according to the Iranian foreign minister on an interview with Fox News. It appears that at the moment, the Islamic Republic of Iran's government has made it incredibly clear that there will be no pause or delay to their efforts to generally continue their path of nuclearization with nuclear-armed weaponry. While the United States has conducted significant strikes through Operation Midnight Hammer and through the 12-day war between Israel and Iran, the Israelis were able to pose significant damage to Iranian nuclear research and weapons development programs. It appears that the Islamic Republic of Iran actually has a decent amount of functional and standing nuclear facilities throughout the entirety of the country, and not only that, we have also been able to see that at least from the moment, the Islamic Republic of Iran's government is still making it clear whether they have a large amount of operational nuclear facilities or not, they are going to be pressing forward with the development of nuclear weapons in the foreseeable future. Of course, this means that U.S. and Israeli ambitions at stopping the Iranian nuclear program in its tracks, and also stopping any further government interest in the Islamic Republic of Iran in pursuing those nuclear programs, has pretty much fallen flat, and we're generally seeing that the United States and Israel will most likely have to consider even further armed action against the Islamic Republic of Iran to stop them from developing and fielding nuclear weapons at some point in the future. We have already been able to hear that the state of Israel is vowing further action, as the chief of staff in a situation assessment today stated that the campaign against Iran is not yet over, once again suggesting that the state of Israel is eyeballing or seriously considering future armed involvement against the Islamic Republic of Iran and the destruction of nuclear weapons and research and development facilities throughout the country to ensure that the Islamic Republic of Iran will never become a nuclear-armed power. While at the exact same time, we have also been able to hear inside the United States of America that the U.S. administration is also considering future action against the Islamic Republic of Iran, as we were able to hear that the President of the United States stated that the United States will strike Iran again if necessary, once again largely showing that the United States and the State of Israel are considering future armed action against the Islamic Republic of Iran for their attempts at continued nuclearization. We have also been able to hear at the exact same time a direct statement by the President of the United States on social media, at least about the situation involving the Islamic Republic of Iran, which I'll read to all of y'all right here. Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, on the Iranian nuclear sites, and I quote, "Damages are very severe. They are destroyed. Of course they are, just like I said, and we will do it again if necessary," as interviewed by Brett Baer. And then it went on to make some fairly political statements, but nevertheless, it is making it quite clear, at least by the statements of the President of the United States, that the United States is considering possible future armed action against the Islamic Republic of Iran to stop any further developments of nuclear weaponry inside of the country. It is also
wait a second. So the U.S. president finally got the confirmation he was looking for, that the nuclear facilities were destroyed by, and the Iranian government finally admitted to that. And then he threatened them to strike them again after they finally admitted to it. That's what he did.
Apparently so. It didn't really make a lot of sense, but at the same time, though, I don't really know where he got that statement, because it's like, yeah, those were destroyed, but as you and me both know, there's been loads of evidence coming out over the past few months clearly showing that there are other nuclear facilities that were not targeted, hit, or destroyed by the Israelis or the United States that they're clearly able to keep running the nuclear program out of. So while the Iranian foreign minister did say that those facilities appear to have been completely knocked out, it's still well within the ballpark that they're working towards a nuclear weapon at the moment right now. So the president, the foreign minister is saying, now they're all destroyed, which is not true. And then the president's going, yes, they are all destroyed, but we'll bomb them again, although they are destroyed, to teach them a lot. Like, I don't even know what the point was, but outside of that, it is a little bit clear that both sides are starting to be a little bit more open about the fact that the Iranian nuclear program was really more so curtailed or delayed, more so than it was completely stopped dead in its tracks. From what we understand, even outside of the Natanz enrichment facility right here is Pickaxe Mountain, which appears to be another underground uranium enrichment facility very similar to the one that was hit and destroyed by the B-2 bombers at Fordo during Operation Midnight Hammer. This is also making it a little bit more clear, at least at the moment, that the United States of America and the State of Israel do have a lot more work to do just in the amount of existent nuclear facilities that are standing at this moment to be able to actually knock out Iran's nuclear research programs once and for all. It's incredibly clear, at least at the moment, that they are still working towards a nuclear weapon. And this has led a lot of people to start talking about the possibilities or the futures of the United States and Israel conducting further armed strikes against the Islamic Republic of Iran. As more and more intelligence, even for the public, which is what we are, is coming out that is showing that the Islamic Republic of Iran is still working towards a nuclear weapon. So we're going to be waiting to see what exactly happens with that. But in the meantime, while we wait to see what all of y'all are thinking about that, we are going to be moving into some news here inside of Los Angeles in California, as we have been able to hear that apparently the People's Republic of China has continued to conduct some form of intelligence gathering operations, even using spies directly on U.S. soil to be able to steal vital information. According to some information that we've had at the moment, we have been able to hear that a Chinese spy, as of today, has stole U.S. missile blueprints. The files were reportedly clearly labeled as containing proprietary data valued at hundreds of millions of dollars in terms of its proprietary value, and apparently, from what we've been able to hear, the specific person, Qingguang Gong, a 59-year-old engineer, transferred more than 3,600 files from an unnamed research and development company in Los Angeles, where he worked, to personal storage devices last year, according to the U.S. Department of Justice. Among the transferred files, which were found at Gong's home in Southern California, were blueprints for sophisticated infrared sensors designed for use in space-based systems to detect nuclear missile launches and track ballistic and hypersonic missiles, largely sounding that this belongs to the firm's satellite. And holy smokes, Neil Vizanant threw in a $300 super chat. Holy moly! A huge shout out. A huge shout out to Neil. Big thanks to you. And also, a big thanks for you congratulating, or more so, giving birthday wishes to Enforcer Matt. But outside of that, it does appear that there has been a pretty significant operational security breach inside of the United States of America from what appears to be a Chinese spy working within a U.S. military firm. This is once again showing that the People's Republic of China is continuing with a concerted campaign in terms of intelligence gathering to try and gather as much intelligence and data as they can on U.S. weapons systems and future U.S. research and development programs like the one we're hearing about inside of Los Angeles. There has been a great deal of information, at least at the moment, that the People's Republic of China has been gathering a great deal of intelligence on U.S. forces, their abilities, and also their future abilities through research and development, at least at the moment, as it is incredibly clear as of the Chinese National conducting his counterintelligence at Newport News, along with the Chinese National that just conducted this intelligence gathering operation in Los Angeles, and a many deal of others that also were trying to gather intelligence inside of Ukraine and Greece. It is becoming incredibly clear, at least at this moment, that the People's Republic of China is continuing this concerted intelligence gathering operation to be able to try and get as much usable or credible information as they can on the West's military capabilities and future military capabilities, to also be able to possibly try to reproduce these weapons or reverse engineer them for PRC use inside the People's Republic of China. That is a little bit more unclear at the moment as to how this intelligence is going to be used by the People's Republic of China, or if any of this even made it out of the engineers' hands inside of the city of Los Angeles. But it is still impressively clear, at least for now, that the Chinese are an open threat to the United States of America, at least in their intelligence gathering operations, and that they could cause significant amounts of damage off of the intelligence they've been able to gather so far. But nevertheless, moving on from that and on back into the Middle East really quickly, we do have more information about what's going on inside the Syrian interim government, and hopefully we'll be able to get an answer from all of y'all here in a minute about what y'all are thinking about the possibility of future Israeli strikes against the Islamic Republic of Iran. But moving on from that and on into Syria, we have largely been able to hear the conclusion, at least at the moment, of, well, not really the conclusion, it's more so going on, but on a much smaller level, but we have been able to hear, at least inside of the information that we've gotten from the southern area of Syria, that it appears that the Druze conflict has largely ended, at least for this point. There is still sporadic fighting happening in the area from small elements of the Syrian tribal army, as well as the region of As-Sawaida, the city itself, and we have also been able to hear of some intermittent fighting still ongoing from Druze and Syrian interim government factions as well. But more importantly, we have also been able to hear a statement from al-Jilani himself, who largely is the de facto president of the Syrian interim government that was brought to power through a widely successful military offensive that was conducted in the latter part of 2024, which brought the Bashar al-Assad regime into a seizure of existence for the large part. The statement that Jelani made was one that was pretty crazy. We're not going to be able to show you all the clip because there's enough watermarks on this thing to make a US dollar looks like it doesn't have enough counterfeiting proof behind it. But nevertheless, in the speech that al-Jilani made to the public inside of Syria, the president squarely blamed the Druze community for all of the violence that happened, and then praised the Bedouin tribes as national heroes. This is something that is a pretty ass-backward sort of a philosophy here, really quickly to mention, because it has not been without fault that the Druze conducted this uprising largely to try and liberate themselves from a government that clearly is not going to be taking any action in the Druze's best interest here within the future. We have been able to hear over the course of the day that the al-Jilani government, well, not over the course of the day, sorry everyone, I'm a little bit distracted at the moment, but we have been able to hear that over the course of the past few months, the al-Jilani government has conducted a general campaign discrediting and treating poorly any minority groups that are currently under Syrian interim government control, including the Alawite Arabs of the west coast, as well as the southern regions of Syria within the Druze lands, and we have been able to see that this sort of mistreatment by the Syrian interim government and its forces have led both of these groups to conduct an uprising, at least in some limited forms. We were able to see that previously the Alawite Arab groups of the west coast have conducted an uprising, which was met with harsh reprisals and largely massacres that were orchestrated by the Syrian interim government, and due to the mistreatment that the Druze people were also facing at the hands of the Syrian interim government, they also started a general rebellion a short while ago, and also were immediately met with strict and harsh reprisals by the Syrian interim government's army forces, and we were also able to hear that mass casualties were inflicted, including a massacre at the As-Sawaida hospital by the Syrian interim government forces. This was generally in response to the Druze rebels rising up to try and declare some sort of an autonomous region, at least within that area of As-Sawaida. At this moment, we are understanding that not only did the Syrian interim government cause a significant amount of atrocities and also massacres within the city, but we also were able to hear that at least at the moment, the Syrian interim government was then followed by the Syrian tribal army, which also conducted massacres within the area. This is all pretty much being blamed on the Druze at this point, pretty much saying that the people who were the victims were pretty much the ones entirely at fault for the large part, but that's what we're understanding at the moment. But before we move on out of that, and we'll largely talk about that in more detail, Matthew, what are people thinking about the future Israeli strikes?
All right. So tonight it's absolutely insane in the chat, by the way. I'm trying to keep up with this, but I'm like a drowning man here, and I'm trying to keep my head above the water. So please bear with me, folks, while I do copy and paste one more thing here. And jumping right into our poll, it says Israel says today that the campaign against Iran is not over as the U.S. threatens Iran yet again. And what are your thoughts? So 49% said Israel will strike Iran soon, while 33% said the USA will strike Iran soon, and 10% said no strikes will occur soon. Now, it's a bit odd, and this is not political, but the U.S. president came out today and said, after the Iranians finally admitted that the nuclear sites were pretty much destroyed all the way, the U.S. president said, "I knew it the whole time, those bastards will strike again." It's like, I don't know why he did that, didn't make much sense, but, you know, he's threatening to strike Iran again after they finally admitted that he was right. So I don't know why, but he did. But Israel, nonetheless, is out here in the public saying that they are going to go back in again, and the campaign is not over, and we're still seeing explosions happening in Tehran and across Iran, which indicates that there are covert operations still underway, and the Israelis are still conducting attacks on the Iranians in a very covert way, but it sounds like it could be very, very much explicit coming up here very soon. So I'm going to be with the 47%. I believe Israel is going to strike again soon, but the U.S. is going to hold off until Israel needs some more help. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would generally have to say that it does appear that the Israelis will most likely be striking Iran here within the near future, as it's become inevitably clear that the Islamic Republic of Iran is going to continue to develop nuclear nuclear weapons and continue to try and field them, at least within the foreseeable future. For this reason, it does not appear at the moment that prior Israeli and U.S. strikes against Iranian nuclear facilities was successful in completely stopping their nuclear ambitions, and for that reason, future armed conflict will be necessary with the Islamic Republic of Iran to be able to try and stop the nuclear weapons program once and for all. But it doesn't really appear that, at least at the moment, there's going to be any inevitable action, at least within the next few days. If anything, the Israelis and the United States might decide to strike the Iranians again within a couple of months, or at the earliest, most likely about a month's time from now. But it does appear that that generally is the prevailing situation on the ground right now, at least at the moment, as it does appear that the Islamic Republic of Iran is still working towards those nuclear weapons, and that the United States and Israel will have to take even further concerted action to be able to try and stop them. But nevertheless, with that in mind, we are going to be getting back into the Syrian interim government situation, because this one has been quite a wild one to see, at least over the past few days, because it is incredibly clear, at least at this point, that the Syrian interim government not only conducted atrocities and crimes against humanity against the Druze people, but they also conducted, pretty much a misinformation campaign with the official address made by al-Jilani, which pretty much put the blame squarely onto the Druze people and no other group inside of the country. For example, the Syrian tribal armies, which went out of their way to amass about 70,000 troops from across the entirety of Syria, and then go down to As-Suwaida to specifically conduct massacres against the Druze people inside of the city, which is something that you generally would think someone would be blamed for, but it appears that Jilani actually praised them in his speech as heroes. If you want to see that speech, you can actually click on the link in the description below to our map and get directly to that speech, but nevertheless, this is something that is absolutely crazy to see at the moment, because it appears that the Syrian interim government is denying any responsibility for any of the massacres that were conducted under their leadership or that of the Syrian tribal army, which has also generally been understood to be under the blessings of al-Jilani to be able to conduct these attacks inside of southern Syria. And it appears that once again, it's making the case quite clear that if you are not a part of a Sunni Arab group inside of the Syrian Arab Republic at the moment, you generally are going to be treated as a second or third class citizen, and if you protest that treatment, you also will be treated incredibly poorly beyond that. But Matthew, I understand that a lot of people are starting to throw in their opinions on this, at least at the moment, and what's been going on inside of southern Syria with the Druze. And what are people thinking about this, Matthew? And what are your people thinking about this as well?
Okay, so we did hear that apparently the ceasefire in southern Syria has been broken for the second time, if you can believe that. It was actually broken the first time and never reinitiated, but they're saying it was broken a second time, according to official reports. And now Jilani is blaming the Druze people for getting attacked by his men, which is crazy in itself. But what are your thoughts? 78% said Jilani is not finished with the Druze people in southern Syria, while 8% said it seems ominous but need more info, and 4% said Jilani will back off completely at this point. And I would say Jelani's not finished with the Druze. Jelani's response indicates that he was either complicit or he knew what was happening, which is my hypothesis the entire time. And that indicates he's probably not finished yet, because he has a bone to pick apparently with the Druze people. And he's probably going to find another way to sneakily send his men back down there and keep harassing and also attacking and maiming the Druze probably into the near future. So I'm with the 78%. This guy is a lunatic. He's a rogue nut, this Jelani fella in Syria, and he's certainly not done yet. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that it's quite clear that al-Jilani is not finished with the Druze, at least at the moment, because it's incredibly clear that he's not really finished with any of the minority groups inside of the Syrian interim government's area of control. It has also been made clear that he is not done with the Kurds of the SDF either, which he's been engaged in combat with over the past few days around the area of Deir ez-Zur. It's for that reason more increasingly clear that Jilani is not going to be finished with the Druze, as the Druze and the Alawite Arabs are still under the direct control of the Syrian interim government. For this reason, they are going to continue to be discriminated against, and not only that, they're also going to continue to be attacked because these groups appear to not be willing to deal with the sort of mistreatment that they're getting at the moment within western Syria and also within southern Syria. And it appears that for that reason, the rebellions and the massacres by the Jilani government are going to continue in full into the foreseeable future at this point. So moving on from that and outside of the Middle East, it is also time for us to get on into a little bit of outside of United States news, because we've already covered that, and to move on up into the Russian Federation and the rest of Eastern Europe, as there is a lot of significant news that has also been going on in this area as well. We have been able to hear that the Russian Federation has been suffering from significant attacks by the state of Ukraine over the past 24 hours, as the Ukrainian armed forces appear to have conducted a concerted drone air campaign against the cities of Millerovo, Rostov-on-Don, and Taganrog, all within the Rostov Oblast. Primarily, we were able to see just recently that a drone attack was conducted inside of Taganrog, which we were able to see in this clip right here. We could also see in another clip outside of those clips from Taganrog that near to the area of Novocherkassk, it appears that a significant amount of military or at least significant logistical targets were hit and destroyed by the Ukrainian armed forces inside of the area. First and foremost, we were able to see a drone impact within the center area of the city, and this is believed to have actually been on the Novocherkassk railway station, with the Ukrainian armed forces now conducting a concerted campaign to hit and destroy a great deal of the railway stations within the Rostov Oblast.
Вот он, ух ты, на ЖД вокзал уебал. Охуеть. Да, вот.
That
was a local Craftsman dealership going down hard.
Man, dude, that's the local Snap-on dealership, man, after they raised the prices a little bit more and the whole world imploded because, of course, everyone knows the economy is held up by Snap-on tools. Nevertheless, we also were able to see Ukrainian drones once again hitting the railway station from a different angle, which we could see in this clip right here. And we can see the smoke rising from the train station. Really quickly to show you all the exact train station that appears to have been hit. Hopefully I'll be able to find it here really quickly because it actually passes through this area on a main line. And there it is. Let me track this on into the city. And it appears that this is the Novocherkassk train station that we actually saw directly hit. For some reason, I tried to geolocate this a while ago, and I thought it was in the central area of the city. Oddly enough, unlike other usual Soviet-era railway stations, this one's actually on the further eastern side of the city, not in a centralized location. Nevertheless, it appears that this railway station was targeted, and we believe that what they may have been trying to target was the locomotive and rolling stock repair facilities that exist just to the south of the actual train station platform, and we believe that that's what the Ukrainian attack was going after. We have started to see that the Ukrainian armed forces are using their drones to attempt to target and destroy significant railway infrastructure throughout the areas of occupied Ukraine, and also within the Rostov Oblast in particular over the past week, as Ukrainian drones have been hitting stations and also railway infrastructure, and that could be vital to the Russians' abilities to supply their forces inside of the Donbass in Ukraine at the moment. Not only that, we also were able to hear of other drone strikes that occurred around the Novocherkassk city area, as it also appears that a military facility or a base of some kind was also hit, which we could see in this clip right here. And that's the end of that clip. A little interesting car alarm going off. And we also have this guy who's deep fried and bass boosted, talking about the strike from another clip as well.
Короче, въебали только что ЖД вокзал. Он горит. Видно прям. Там дрон въебал. И там впереди сейчас, если видно будет, он там ПВО сработало.
Is this filmed on a VHS camera or something? I mean, what the hell does this look like?
I don't know. I think this was filmed on one of those classic potatoes. You know, the ones like the disposable cameras you would get at Disney for like $2 back in the 90s. I think it was filmed on that.
Maybe so. It's pretty grainy.
Yeah, it's really grainy. But we can see the fire going on down there. And that's the end of the clip right there, but still largely showing us a hit on a military facility also within Novocherkassk. Then we also were able to hear that apparently the power station near the Novocherkassk also was hit as well, and for some reason, we don't know why, but Novocherkassk appears to be the priority target over the past 24 hours, as they had a railway station, a military facility, and the power station all in Novocherkassk at the exact same time. So here's the clip of the power station also being directly hit and catching on fire.
О, пиздец. Ебать. О, второй. О, нет, это трассирует.
And that's the end of that clip, but still showing us the significant attack that was hitting the Novocherkassk power station, at least recently. Nevertheless, it does appear that at the moment, the Ukrainian armed forces have been able to get some significant hits onto the Novocherkassk area. And we also were able to hear further north within the Rostov region, near to the area of Millerovo, that it appears that the Millerovo airbase was also attacked overnight by Ukrainian armed forces, or more so Ukrainian drone forces, within the past few hours. From what we understand, this airbase generally houses an Su-34 fighter bomber wing at its tarmac, which we can also see on satellite footage right here. We do not believe that the other MiG-29s that are seen on this tarmac are operational, or that air wing is currently here at this time. We are currently understanding that pretty much all air bases within range of Ukraine pretty much only have Su-34s at them, and it's incredibly rare to see any other sort of a wing, an air wing, stationed at any of the air bases within the area. We were able to see, however, a decent amount of videos showing the attacks at Millerovo in these clips right here. And we hear what appears to be popcorn popping, which is just machine gun fire.
Uh-oh.
Bro, what was that little horn honk, bro? That guy revved it, he went, ring, and then he went, bing. It's like, bro, he like...
That was the sign off. I think Ivan was revving up the Lotta. He figured he's getting out of there. Like, honestly, that's the smartest thing, because it looks like the small arms fire is not doing the trick.
Yeah, it doesn't really look like it. Let's listen to that one more time.
Yeah, Ivan's heading out.
Bro, that guy was in there. Dude, he clocked out and he let everyone know with a little beep. He revved that thing up and everything. But we can see here the small arms fire still going. And that's the end of the clip. But moving on from that one and into the next one, we also got to see another clip showing us the airbase attack.
It's still baffling. Like, I say this like a broken record, but how the hell, after all this time, does Russia not have proper air defense around their air bases, airfields, and things like that? They just now, this year, started building hardened shelters in some places for their aircraft, but that's just like a brand new development. Like, this is like the first time they've ever had that, but they still don't have any type of, like, real air defense. You can't count an AK-47 as air defense.
No, I don't think you can. They don't have air defense. They don't have hardened shelters. They don't have any hardened shelters for ammunition storage. They don't even have really any on-base facilities like barracks for any of their service members to live at. The Russian air bases are literally just an airstrip, and that's it. It's literally the cheapest sort of an air base to be built. There's nothing that compares in the Western world to what this is. I think honestly, Matthew, if we were to compare this to anywhere in America, this might be... Let me go find it really quickly. You know the one I'm about to go find here. Where in the world is it? It's somewhere around here. You know what I'm talking about, Matthew. It's that little airstrip, but I don't know where... Right here. It's like this.
Yeah, basically so. It's like just like a little small like country airport or something, and they treat it like that too, even though it's got military equipment at it.
You know, honestly, man, this literally is... No joke, this literally is that airfield. I mean, look, it's got a little servicing area for the aircraft. It's got a little storage area that looks like it's run down. It's got a little maintenance hangar here. It's got, you know, a place for fuel. This might as well be an ammunition storage. And then it's got one runway, one taxiway, and that's it. Literally the same layout as Millerovo, and that's considered to be a pretty podunk airfield inside the United States. And over in Russia, that counts as one of their highest class military air bases in the entirety of the Russian Federation, because pretty much all of their air bases are laid out similarly and have about the same amenities on them for their aircraft and service members. So a little bit pitiful, if you ask me, and I think that they could do just a little bit better. Maybe, possibly a little bit better. But then again, the Russians are broke ass poor, so that's asking a lot of them to do any better, but this is still pretty rough. Also, what is... Wait a minute, hold up, Mandy. I think they got the Russian airmen living in tents.
This is back in Russia again? This is not Wetumpka, right?
Yeah, this is back in Millerovo in the Rostov region. This looks like tents to me, man, like for like service members to work at.
I mean, that's honestly generous, because I didn't think they got tents anymore. I thought they still like lived out in the wide open.
Dude, I thought they, like, slept in the woods and stuff like that, because that didn't seem to be too far off, and I think this is the ammunition facility. Also, notice the crates of bombs just out in the wide open. That's always a promising sign of safety being taken as top priority. We also have a motor pool, literally a grass lot that they park the trucks on. They also have dirt paths that the trucks travel on as well, to and from the airport, meaning that they're tracking mud and debris onto the tarmac every time they arrive. And let's see here, what is this? This looks to be fuel storage, most likely. Once again, not really anything to look at. It's an earthenwork structure around the fuel tanks, not really that impressive. And finally, at least some earthwork berms around some of the tarmac where the aircraft can be parked for a temporary period of time. They also have a repair station. I've never seen a more hood-looking repair station than this. This looks like something straight out of like North Birmingham, maybe.
Yeah, really, it looks very rundown.
And they also have some odds and ends stuff. Wait a minute. Dude, no way. Look at this. Those are
those
bombs.
missiles?
Those are bombs. They just got them sitting there.
That is insane. Now you see how we send our missiles and bombs over, like when we send them to Ukraine. Like we send them in these nice, like custom-made Pelicans or like some version of a Pelican case or something, and we send them like 2x2, like in these nice cases. They just literally pile them on the side of the runway, like yeah, whatever. It's like there's no accountability for it. Like somebody could literally just grab one, walk off with it, and steal it, and nobody even know it was missing.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, hold up. We actually reposted something of that today. I didn't put it on the location unknowns, but I've got to show you all that because there's a big difference in between the West and the Russians. This is how we send the AIM-9s. Clean, sleek, Pelican cased, like Matthew would like. Matthew likes Pelican cases. And honestly, I like this. This is packaged incredibly well, incredibly clean, and generally, not too bad at all. I gotta say, not bad. Very nice as a matter of fact. On the other hand, with the Russians, they're literally right here on the side of the runway, literally just stacked up in rows. You can hit that with a drone and probably wipe out most of the aircraft on the tarmac, like at least within this area.
Yeah, you really could, honestly. It's insane. Like, you wonder, do they even keep an inventory on their missiles, or do they just, like, do they not do that at all?
I don't think they do, actually. I think they technically keep an inventory, but the inventory is very loosely kept, and a lot of the stuff kind of floats around, and they don't really keep a good inventory of it. Because also, look at this. There's, like, piles of trash, like, right next to the bombs around the airbase tarmac. It's just random stuff. Like, I don't even know what most of that
junky,
is.
Man. Just junky, honestly. And they want to know why there's a lot of graft and corruption. That's because they're not accounting for anything. I wonder if someone like, for example, a Ukrainian like saboteur could simply sneak in here, like grab one of those bombs or missiles or something. I'm not sure how heavy they are. They could be too heavy to carry, but maybe just pull a truck up or something, load some up, and just drive off. And would the Russians even know? Like, that's my question.
I would have to say I don't really have a clue. I also saw someone saying that these could be drop tanks. These are not drop tanks because the Russians, as a country, never really invested a lot in drop tanks, and there's really only one aircraft that can use drop tanks, which is the MiG-29, and their fuel tanks are pretty distinct. Let me go show y'all a MiG-29 external fuel tank. Each MiG-29 can only carry one of them, and they are pretty... Let me see here. A MiG-29, not a MiG-19. We need a MiG-29 external fuel tank. Their fuel tanks are really stubby, and you can actually, they're fairly distinct. You can tell them from a good ways away. So let me see if I can show y'all one of these. So there we go. So this is a MiG-29 with an external fuel tank on board. And you can see that they're fairly stubby. They're quite small, and they can fit right in the recess between the two engine cells at the bottom of the fuselage of the MiG-29. So they're fairly short. These, on the other hand, are not fairly short. These are actually quite lengthy and do not really appear to exactly be an external fuel tank. It actually appears to be more so a KH-39, to quickly show you one of these, or a KH, here, really quickly, let me see if I can find this. Here we go. They appear to more so be KH-35s that are stacked along the runway, more so than external fuel tanks like these. Because these are incredibly wide, at least for their length. These are fairly thin for their length, and that appears to generally be what's stacked up out here. It doesn't really look like an external fuel tank of any kind. But maybe we're wrong, because then again, this doesn't really have extremely high resolution. Maybe it is an external fuel tank, but, well, these actually do fit the dimensions. These, on the other hand, I wouldn't know of any aircraft in the Russian Air Force, considering that the MiG-29 is the only one that can carry a fuel tank, that would carry a fuel tank like this. I've at least personally never seen them before. So with
The only thing I could think of, like some people in the live chat are saying, maybe it's like some type of dummy ammunition that they use for training. But at the same time, though, even if it was dummy ammunition, why would you just set it outside in a pile like that? Like, that still wouldn't even make any sense for the dummy ammunition. And also, we have seen the Russians like leave a bunch of ammo outside before. It's not anything new for the Russians. And also, they don't have a whole bunch of shelters to actually house it in either. So, I mean, it's totally possible, but you know, it's hard to tell from that low resolution photo.
Let's see. Let me think of another place that we could go to show. Maybe near Bryansk. There's a Grawl arsenal near Bryansk that we might be able to show. This is a factory. I think. No, that's not it. There's an ammunition facility that we've looked at before, and the ammunition was out in the wide open. And I'm trying to. You know what? Let's go to Ingles, because I think this might. Actually, no, this place already got cratered at this point. The satellite footage got updated, and it was already cratered. But before, well, shoot, actually, look, it's still there, actually. You can actually see that they just leave like crates of bombs out in the wide open. I don't know how these didn't cease to exist in the explosion, because there was actually a Ukrainian attack that hit this specific ammunition facility, and that's why a lot of it's destroyed. But you can actually see that there are still boxes of bombs just sitting out in the wide open. Even pre-explosion, that was the case. They just had explosives sitting everywhere out in the wide open. So saying that these are bombs lined up along the side of the runway isn't actually that far out of reality, because the Russian Federation doesn't really have the strictest munition storage protocols, and they're not really that strict in following along with them either. So generally, this actually could be some sort of a KH-style air-to-ground laser-guided munition or some other form of munition that's actually sitting on the side of the runway waiting to be mounted onto the Su-34s. But nevertheless, it does seem at the moment that the Ukrainians have been able to land some pretty significant hits. And getting y'all into the last clip here, here's another clip of the Millerovo airbase attack.
Он прям где-то над нами, да? С облаков не видно.
And that's the end of that clip, but still letting us hear at least the drones flying to the Millerovo airbase. It'll probably be by tomorrow that we can get some sort of a damage assessment of some kind about the attack of the airbase and the kind of damage that was inflicted, but it does appear, at least at the moment, that the Ukrainian armed forces were able to conduct a very significant attack against the Russian Federation and its assets within the area of Rostov-on-Don. But moving on out of that and further on up and into the area of largely the rest of the Russian Federation, we also were able to hear of another significant drone attack that has been conducted against Moscow and St. Petersburg, which closed down flights coming to and from both cities for a couple of hours, which we can see in this clip right here. That's the end of the clip, but still showing us that at least for today, the airports were shut down. Outside of that, we also were able to hear that the Russian Federation's economy is once again going into an absolute state of collapse, and at this point, the situation can openly be described as practically apocalyptic. We were able to hear in the St. Petersburg area that Russian gas exports have dropped 7% within the first half of this year, according to the IEA. A 7% drop in liquefied natural gas exports is actually actually incredibly significant. It's nearly an entire tenth of their export volume, decreasing over the course of about 6 months. We already generally understand that at this point, due to the sanctions on Russian liquefied natural gas and petroleums being shipped around the world to other foreign countries, particularly the European market, that the Russian Federation's main gas and oil industries have started to suffer quite significantly from these setbacks. And that's actually not to be understated. The value of Gazprom is actually dropping quite a lot. As you can see here, this is actually the company called Labubu, and Labubu makes toys, and Labubu is valued at this point about around $42 billion, and that's at least in this current part of the year in 2025. On the other hand, Gazprom, which is Russia's biggest company in their country, it's pretty much responsible for the existence of Russia in the modern day, and is generally state-run as a result of that, is now evaluated at a value of about $41 billion. As you can see, it's massively been dropping since the beginning of the war in Ukraine, more so than really any other normal company would. And this now means that Russia's largest company, which is Gazprom, is now worth less than Labubu, which produces toys.
Now, what kind of toys is Labubu making?
I don't know, Boo Boo, but they be making those
Hey,
pretty
man.
good ones.
Hey, no diddy.
Hey, Boo Boo, what do you got in that picnic basket? Poverty. It's like, brother, Russia took out poverty, man. But this is, of course, showing all of y'all that the economic thing in Russia is not going too well. Not really that well at all. But what's even worse, this is actually something that's been even more shocking. Some of y'all may have heard about China's attempt to open up their markets for open up the Russian market for Chinese electric car sales. Matthew, you remember that, right? You know, the whole electric car sale craze that
Yeah.
China had going on for a little bit, and then how China started to state, we're pulling all of our electric cars from the Russian market because no one's buying them, apparently because they're not good enough for the Russians, was supposedly the claim by the Russian government.
Yeah, I remember that.
So, of course, we all know that the result of that was that the Russians said the Russians are refined in their tastes, and they only like great Russian cars, like the Lada. And everyone knows that the Lada is the greatest car company that's ever existed in the world. Everyone in the world drives a Lada. The issue, however, is that Russia's car sales within the past 6 months have dropped 60%. 60%. So that now means that the car industry is about 40% the size that it was at the beginning of this year. And it is such a bad economic situation that every single car manufacturer in Russia, as of today, is now moving into a 4-day work week, meaning that their factories are only running for 4 out of every 7 days a week. This is a significant move by a lot of major companies like AutoVAZ, which is one of the largest auto manufacturers in the Russian Federation and is one of the largest suppliers of Russian automobiles to the Russian public. It's the fact that they aren't making enough money anymore to even really cover the costs of running the factory 5 days a week at a minimum. And usually factories like these work almost non-stop, generally 7 days a week. It wasn't that long ago that they went to a 5-day work week, and now they're bumping it down to 4. And this is going to have very significant economic effects across the entirety of the Russian Federation, because these auto manufacturers give tens of thousands of people in Russia, really hundreds of thousands of them, steady jobs. If these factories are working less amount of time, that means that they're producing a smaller number of cars. If they're producing a smaller number of cars, they're buying less parts. If they're buying less parts, there's a great deal of companies out there that supplied those companies with those parts that are going to be seeing decreased business, decreased profits, and they're probably going to have to start laying employees off or also cutting down their work days as well. Cut down work days for everyone involved means that everyone's making less money, meaning that their money is having to be stretched farther or they're making less. And at the same time, the Russian Federation is still suffering from inflation, meaning that while they're making less money, they have to stretch their dollars farther. And this once again means that a lot of people might not be able to afford their groceries, afford their rent, and the economic downturn and spiral is only worsening at this point inside of the Russian Federation. And on top of that all, the Polish government today has stated, in the middle of the Russians clearly going into the absolute death throes of economic collapse, the Polish have now stated that the Russians are a hostile state and all Polish citizens are advised to leave Russia immediately. To quickly read to y'all what the Polish Foreign Ministry put out today, we recommend that Polish citizens residing in Russia leave its territory by available commercial and private means if their life, family, or professional situation does not require the need to stay on the territory of this country. Due to the progressive reduction of the diplomatic and consular staff of the Republic of Poland and Russia, caused by the decision of the local authorities to withdraw the permission for the functioning of consulates general in St. Petersburg and Königsberg. Also, notice, Matthew, that they didn't call it Kaliningrad, they called it Königsberg.
Oh, yeah, they sure did.
The possibility of providing direct consular assistance to Polish citizens is becoming more and more limited. In order to obtain it, it may be necessary to go to very distant consular offices. At the same time, we would like to inform you that failure to register to travel to Russia and the Odysseus system will significantly hinder consular interventions in the event of crisis situations. In the event of a drastic deterioration of the security situation, border closures, or other unforeseen situations, evacuation may prove to be significantly more difficult or even impossible. And it's starting to show that the Polish government is now starting to state that they are pretty much telling everyone to leave, otherwise things are going to get really bad for them. But beyond that, a lot of people are talking about the Russian banks supposedly preparing for a massive debt crisis in Russia in the latter part of this year or in early 2026. And Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so this is something right here that we discussed about 2 nights ago on the stream as well, but we're getting some more information today that apparently the debt crisis, which is building up inside of the Russian banks, is a lot worse than we even thought a couple of days back. So the poll says, Ukraine says, and major Russian banks are preparing for massive debt crisis in late 2025 this year or early 2026. And what are your thoughts? 45% said it will happen at that time, while 33% said it will happen much sooner, and 9% said it will never truly happen. Now, here's the problem in Russia right now. People currently have loans, like everybody has loans around the world. Like, for example, Americans will take out loans for cars, houses, and even sometimes they take out loans for Chipotle these days. But in Russia, they do the same thing. But the problem is the Russians are defaulting on those loans so fast that it's creating a problem for the banks because they're getting screwed over every time one of these loans defaults. So that's what's happening right now. And apparently, late this year or early next year, the loans are going to start defaulting so fast, rapidly, in such large numbers, the banks are about to have a collapse. That's what they're saying, according to these reports. So I'm going to say it will happen at that time. Probably not sooner than that. I'm going to say probably late this year, early next year, like the analysts are saying. I'm going to be the 46%. Now, also, another thing as well, not only is civilian debt having a crisis, but these companies like AutoVAZ right there that we just saw a moment ago, changing to the 4-day work week, they also have big loans, I'm sure, as well. I don't know, obviously we don't see their balance sheet, but I'm sure they have big loans because every company out there borrows money to operate, and they're probably no exception. So I'm pretty sure that big companies across Russia are also going to probably be having some issues with default at some point in the near future. Maybe not the auto company, but at least one other or several other companies will probably have that exact same problem, and those are probably going to be very big loans that the banks really cannot afford to have defaulted on. So it's going to be a big problem, in my opinion. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say that I'd also agree it's going to be a pretty significant problem, and I think that the Russian banks are most likely going to be seeing a debt crisis in late 2025 and early 2026, as it's become increasingly clear that a lot of these Russian companies, like AutoVAZ, Gazprom, and a load of others like Rostov Oblast and a million others that we could name off, are simply no longer able to turn profits because no one's buying the goods that they're producing. And a lot of those people also don't have money to even cover their basic living expenses or basic operations of their companies. And for that reason, they are not going to be able to continue to pay off their loans that they have taken as companies, because pretty much every existent major corporation or company like this has some sort of a significant loan that they have on their bankroll, or largely their bank statements, that they have to be paying off to largely cover their expenses and also normal company operations, and also the significant economic upheaval of the war. And as they are once again not turning any profits, they won't be able to pay off those debts, and those debts are going to come and crush pretty much every single one of these companies. So the Russian government is either going to have the option of bailing these companies out or letting the banks pretty much rip them to shreds. And considering that the Russian government doesn't have any money, these companies are going to end up getting ripped to shreds. And considering that that's going to be the case, rapid inflation is most likely going to set in. There's going to be a huge financial crisis because a lot of people are no longer going to have jobs. And then the bank also has no money to work with either, meaning that the banks are most likely going to be collapsing as well. Pretty much at this point, it's incredibly clear that the Russians are going to be suffering a significant economic collapse at some point here within the very near future, most likely within just the latter part of this year or the beginning of next year. And so with that, I hope that
And,
does...
and also, some people in the live chat are saying, well, can the Russian government somehow save the situation and bail the banks out? They technically can bail the banks out, but the question is, where is Russia going to get that money from? Because they're already printing mass amounts of rubles right now just to keep the government afloat, and that's just for the government. That's not bailing people out. That's just keeping the government running and keeping the war running. They're already printing rubles out the kazoo. So where is Russia going to get that kind of liquidity to actually bail out these banks when they do eventually collapse later this year or next year? And the truth is, they have to look for external sources. They have to go to either Iran, they have to go to China, they have to go to someone to have them bankroll, literally, their major companies to keep them from falling and collapsing, which could collapse the entire Russian economy in one fell swoop if it's bad enough. So, you know, they got to look to China. Like, China is like the only hope left for Russia's economy if it truly goes under. And if it goes under, China's going to have to make a decision. Are they going to let their only geopolitical ally basically crumble underneath their feet? Or are they going to save them by bailing them out with money? And that right now is the question. And also, China's having some problems economically as well, but they're still in a better position than Russia, even considering that.
I would definitely agree, but then the issue is, does China want to try and bankroll Russia's existence? Because that could end up being pretty expensive.
Yeah, and I don't know. Like, I think we had this debate before. I think personally, I think China would probably bail them out because they are the only geopolitical ally that China has. So, you know, they want an organized Russia. They don't want one that's like in shambles and the government's overthrown and things like that. That wouldn't be very good for China because then they have no real organization with their allies. So I think they will, but only time's going to tell because China's got to come up with the money from somewhere as well. And they surely aren't going to use the BRICS dollar to try to fund Russia. I don't think that's going to work.
Man, the BRICS dollar doesn't even exist. So, hey, man, they couldn't even come together.
They're going to
for
come
that.
up with it.
Bro, they're going to come up with that renminbi, bro. They're going to hit the Russians with the Tetris-sounding money, and then the Russian economy is really going to fold because nobody trades in renminbi. I think it only makes up like 3% of global currency reserves or less. It's like a non-existent number. But I actually don't know if the Chinese would financially bankroll the Russians because think about it. You would have to bankroll at least at a minimum a $1.7 trillion economy annually. And that is extreme. I mean, I don't really think any government in the world, I don't even think the United States, unless, you know, we're like, you know, at war, we can bankroll a country at nearly 1.7 trillion a year. That's a lot. Like, that's a huge amount.
They don't have to bankroll the entire thing. All they have to bankroll is some of the major companies because the point of a bailout, if China decided to bail out these major Russian companies, the point is to not let all the Russian banks collapse simultaneously. That's the point. If they can keep some of them afloat, then the Russian economy can theoretically keep going. But if all the banks like have a run on them, they start collapsing, there's major defaults, the banks start becoming, insolvent, I guess is the word for it, then that's going to cause a ripple effect with the Russian economy. If China decides to bail out, like let's say Gazprom is one of these companies that goes under, if they decide to bail out Gazprom and give them an injection of cash, that'll keep that loan from defaulting and maybe keep a bank still running or at least solvent until they can fix the problem domestically inside of Russia.
Possibly so. That might actually be the case. But still, it is quite a really very concerning situation for the Russian Federation at the moment because it doesn't really look like, unless they did get any kind of financial support from the Chinese, that they'll really be able to survive much longer. Even if they can keep fighting on the front, they will not have the money to be able to even pay those soldiers at some point here in the near future. But nevertheless, with that in mind, we are about to be moving on into our next pieces of news, which actually involve Kaliningrad and the rest of the Ukraine war, or at least everything else that's been going on out there on the front today. But before we get into that, we have to make sure to get into a question segment here really quickly, because it is Enforcer Matt's birthday today. And Matthew, what do we got for some live chats? Matthew, what do we got?
All right. So first of all, I want to say a big thanks to everybody for the happy birthday wishes. I've seen all the kind words in the chat, and sadly, I was not able to respond to every single one of them, as the chat's been going like 200 chats a minute tonight, and it's simply too much for me to respond to. But thank you all very much for the happy birthday wishes. And also, if I did not respond to your message, just know, please forgive me, because I would have responded, but I just got so overwhelmed tonight, it was kind of hard to keep up. But thank you all very much once again. But jumping right into our first super chat question here, this one goes to Neil Vizanant, who's of course a channel legend. He puts in a massive $300 donation, and thank you very much, Neil, for that massive support, the largest of the night by far. He said, guess who's back? LSA, and I had a relatively simple neck surgery. It was supposed to be in the hospital one night, and a blood vessel in my neck started leaking after surgery. My God. I almost died and had an emergency surgery, stayed in the hospital 2 weeks, and recovery's been hell. Jeez, man, I'm sorry to hear that. And also, I hope you're better. And he said, happy birthday, Enforcer Matt. And also, thank you for the happy birthday wishes as well. And that sounds like a disaster right there. I hate that happened, by the way. Honestly, that makes me like queasy to even think about that, to be honest. That sounds terrible. But Enforcer, what say you?
Yeah, that sounds terrible, Neil Viznon. I hate to hear that happened. Hopefully things are on the up and up, though, and you'll continue to be on the mend with that, because that is absolutely crazy sounding. I mean, it was a simple operation, but that's all. I got to be honest with you, Neil Viznon. Me and Matthew are always scared about any kind of surgery, because we're always like, what if you go in for something simple and then it becomes something major like that? But it's good to hear that they were able to stabilize the situation, and hopefully you're on the mend at this point. But I do thank you for the massive support, and also wishing Matthew a very happy birthday, because I know that it means a great deal to Matthew to get happy birthday wishes, and it's good to know that the entirety of the Lee Spring Army has been wishing Matthew happy birthday tonight, because the chat's literally been moving at like 1,000,000 miles an hour all night long. So a huge thanks to you so much once again for that incredible support, and wishing Matthew a happy birthday, because he definitely deserves it. He's been an amazing co-host on the show, of course a great brother, and of course it's an amazing thing to have him around for a 25th birthday, and hopefully about another 100 or so. Maybe he'll live to 120. How will you feel about that, Matthew, if you live to 120?
I think that's too long. I think I'll pass on that.
Man, so when is long enough then? Like, is it like 80, 90?
I don't know. I think 70 might do it, or maybe by the time the next World War comes around, that might do it as well. But honestly, to like be not morbid and stuff like that, like I think a good 70 or 80 is fine. I don't want to live to 100 though. I'll be honest with you. Getting up toward that age, like if anybody's near that age, by the way, I'm not trying to like take a jab at you or something like that, but it starts becoming like. It starts becoming like a pain to like even move the legs like at that age, because you start developing like arthritis and stuff like that, and then it's hard to be mobile, and then you're kind of like chair bound from that point forward. So then it's like then it becomes like torture to even get up and walk, because the legs are hurting and stuff like that. Like I don't know, that's a long time for me.
Man, shoot. Matthew's gonna be like one of those folks, man, in like the TikToks. You're gonna be sitting there at 84. You're gonna be like, thank you everyone for being here at my birthday, and hopefully it'll be my last. And then everyone's like, oh, like what the hell? Like, but beyond that, I still got to thank you massively for the huge support, Neil Vizanant, and thank you for wishing Matthew a happy birthday. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. Also, Ms. Deesa said the brain still works. Only in some. Only in some. There's actually some people that are like, 40 years old and 50 years old, and the brain doesn't work even at 40. So, I think it's kind of age dependent and kind of not. It depends on who you're talking to these days. But anyways, jumping into our next super chat here, this one is going to go to none other than Deminoac, who puts in a $100 donation. Hey! And thank you very much, Deminoac, for that support. And he said, just to help with Neil.
And I got to thank you for the massive support as well, and just helping out with Neil Diminoek, because Neil Vizanant threw in an unbelievable amount of support, and it's amazing to see a lot of people throwing in loads of happy birthday wishes for Enforcer Matt, and not only that, huge amounts of support to congratulate Matthew for his birthday. It means a lot to Enforcer Matt, and of course, it's a great thing to know that we were able to hang out a little bit today on his birthday. So a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the last question of the segment, and then we're going to be moving on into the rest of the news.
All right, so our last one here goes to Deminoac once again. He throws in a 50 this time, and thank you very much, good sir, for that support once again. He said, no, Matt, USA has flush toilets. Russia got outhouse. That's true, actually. But in Moscow, they've got the toilets, but that's Moscow. But if you go to rural Russia, sometimes no toilet. That's why you'll see the famous Slav squat sometimes out in the middle of rural Russia. But thank you very much, good sir, for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I'd have to say that I would thank you massively for the support, Deminoic, and that is true. The Russians have what we call the squatty potty, or the outhouse for the large part. Not really the greatest thing in modern plumbing technology, or at least sewage technology. It's a little bit of a behind-the-times sort of thing, about last century or so. Here in America, we all have centralized plumbing and sewage. It's a great thing. Or you have a septic tank. The Russians, they have neither. You go out to rural Russia, what do you see? You see shitters without the plumbing. It's shitters with the shit. Not really the greatest sort of a scenario to see. But a big thanks to you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Deminoac, because folks like you help this channel to keep on running and help us to make this thing possible day in and day out. And so with that, we are going to be moving on into the rest of the news for the night. And we have quite a large amount of news still left to cover. And moving us on into Kaliningrad really quickly, we were able to hear of some heavy GPS interference that has been going on in the area. And would y'all look at this, folks? A lot of it's around Kaliningrad. Now, why would that be? Why in the world would a lot of electronic interference be coming from an area around Kaliningrad? Why would that be? Why? What would be going on in that area? And it's also near to the Belarusian border, near to the Russian border, near to the area of the Gulf of Finland. It's a little bit bizarre, if you ask me. It's starting to show a little bit of a running theme. And I wonder what the kind of a theme that would be. I'm sure some of y'all might be able to pick up on that a little bit, a tiny bit at least, but a little bit odd. Matthew, what are you making of this? What is this?
This looks to me like classic Russian interference, this time in the sky.
Man, would you call this Russian electronic interference?
Oh, yes.
But Matthew, I swore that was a hoax.
I don't know if I can get into this joke right here. This joke's getting sketchy.
Man, but, well, I heard that apparently the whole the Russian electronic interference thing was made up, but this map is showing that it's apparently not. It's quite prevalent, at least within Eastern Europe right now. But moving on out of that and on down into the area of Western Ukraine, we were able to hear of a Mirage 2000 apparently suffering a significant failure, forcing the pilot to eject earlier today, which we can see in this clip right here.
Прикинь, парашют падает, блядь, тільки що самоліт, блядь, зробив первый ряд. Падає, блядь, пілот, ёб твою мать.
And that's the end of the clip right there, but we do not know what kind of technical malfunction the Mirage 2000 had, but apparently it was significant enough that the pilot had to bail out, and then the aircraft was, of course, obviously lost as a result. Moving on from that and on over into the Russian Federation itself and the Kursk Oblast, we also were able to hear of a Russian HQ suffering a significant deconstruction today from a GBU-62. Take a look. That thing is gone.
And geez, everybody in the chat's talking about they need knees replaced soon. My goodness, like honestly, this is a lot of people saying that too. You're scaring me.
How old are they? Do you know?
I'm not sure about all of them. One or two said the age, but it was just in general, I think. It's actually across the board.
Man, that scares me, folks, because, like, did y'all run out your knees extended warranties or something? Because it sounds like a lot of people are getting old knees, or worn out knees at least. Me personally, I like to keep the mileage on my knees a little low, under 100,000, me personally. But nevertheless, we also were able to see some Ukrainian special forces like the INSIS unit capturing some Russians in the battles around the forests of North Sumy. Take a look at the clip. I was about to say, is this a clip without music? And then I heard the, what sounded to be Japanese, I believe it's taiko drums. And I was like, no, it's got music. So we're going to have to mute it. But we can see them moving through the underbrush. And I'm not going to lie, Matthew, this looks like Alabama.
It kind of does, actually.
Man, they're in the great state of Alabama. They're about to go down there and cap them. And we can see them wandering around here in the woods. Also, folks, I've actually heard that there's a replacement for bad knees called bee's knees. I don't really know how it works because I would assume that the knees on a bee are quite small, considering that a bee is incredibly small. But a lot of people have said that the bee's knees are a good replacement for faulty kneecaps. I wouldn't personally know. But beyond that, we can see the Ukrainian soldier here hugging a tree. And we can see here that a Russian has just come out from the underbrush. He's surrendering. I never knew that trees in Ukraine could just spontaneously produce Russians, but it looks like they took one. Straight from the vine, plucked it clean from the vine. Also, why is he got like the trank walk down? What's going on with that?
Well, you never know. I mean, it could be a crocodile, a crocodile.
Man, he's out there. He's like, man, this shit got me weak. Like, and he's like walking out like that. Kind of a little bizarre the way you see him moving on. When you see them pointing out, well, actually, it looks like this guy's being told to tell his others to surrender. And now they're moving him on out to process him into a prisoner of war camp. But that's the end of the clip right there. Quite an interesting one to see. Moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see the Ukrainian 1st Mechanized Battalion of the 22nd Mechanized Brigade doing a little bit of harm to the Russians. We can
Is
see
that Alabama with a banjo on my knee that I heard playing in the beginning? What the hell?
Bro, the hills
That's
have
not
eyes.
allowed right there. That is copyrighted for Alabama. That is not for Ukrainians.
Man, dude, there's some Ukrainian out there, man. He's like, get that good ass name, you know, like he's speaking like Ukrainian, and then if you actually listen to him in his natural accent, man, I went out there, I beat the hell out of them Russians, man, knocked the snout out of them. You know, it's like, dang, bro, it's an Alabamian Ukrainian. But when you see them hitting them with the drones, we could see them hitting them with the drones and causing irreparable damage to their vehicles. The Russians will no longer be able to use their guns. And we see them also hitting a dirt bike. And another dirt bike. And also a Russian that spontaneously combusted. They happen to do that from time to time. We can also see them hitting a Russian bunker out in the open field. And that's the end of that clip, but still showing us the Ukrainian actions that occurred at least within North Sumy. Moving on from that, it's time for us to get on into our location unknowns. And first off, we were able to get news that's going to make Matthew very happy. Anduril Industries has demonstrated the combat use of the Altius 600M loitering drone in Ukraine. Matthew is a big fan of Anduril, by the way, folks. Matthew is a big believer in the future of the Anduril company, one of the innovators, at least in drone technologies. And it appears that the Anduril 600M, seen here, has actually been effectively used in Ukraine. At least according to information that we have, in March, the British purchased Altius 600Ms and 700Ms for about £30 million and then shipped all of them into Ukraine for the Ukrainians to use. So it actually appears that the Anduril Industries drones are actually very effective at what they do, which is not really shocking because they actually are really good drones.
I would say that Andrew got the positive end of the stick there with that because they got paid for it. The UK bought them, and then they got to also test them in combat and got to report back basically how the performance was in a real world scenario. So that's like marketing material for them too. That's honestly very smart actually, because Anduril, I'm not just like fanboying over that company just for the hell of it. Like they're one of the very few defense companies today that's actually taking the drone advancement seriously in the United States. The rest of the legacy companies, they're working on drones, but they're not really fully understanding the new smaller drone variants and how important that is for the battlefield, because for whatever reason, these legacy companies, they want to build these massive complex systems and they don't want to make stuff necessarily like disposable. But that's kind of like what you have to have these days in order to win a war, and Russia and Ukraine has shown us that. So Anduril is catching up, they're already there, but the other companies are just learning how to sort of get on the same page, which in my opinion is kind of a little bit concerning, but at least one company's on the ball.
At least one company is, and also they got these things dripped out with the design. Absolutely incredible. But moving on from that, we also got to see the F-16.
Very nice.
Very clean. This one appears to be loaded out with AIM-9s, 3 external fuel tanks, and was sitting on the tarmac. We also have an additional picture of this F-16 from the top down. This pic goes hard, almost looks like some sort of like a toy set, kind of like a thing, like for marketing purposes. Pretty cool, honestly, really neat. And I gotta say, the F-16 with the Ukrainian roundels on it actually goes pretty hard. These are actually pretty impressive looking, honestly, and it's great to know that the Ukrainians have had these F-16s in service for a little while now. We also got to see the Russian casualty report as well. And for Enforcer Matt's birthday, we have one Bobcat.
Hey, that's what I'm talking about.
Hey!
One Bobcat. I'll tell you what, it's been a minute since I had one too, so I'd like to see it.
Man, right on Enforcer Matt's birthday. A great day for a large part. But beyond that, Miss D secure the record stated that 256 drones is the 9th highest daily loss, tied with the 2nd of June 2025, and drones are average about 228 a day since the 4th of July. Another rare special equipment, and tanks are getting rare too, and it does appear that that is the case. But we have been able to see that over the course of the past 24 hours, 1,090 Russian soldiers have been wounded and killed, along with 7 APCs, 94 supply trucks, 1 main battle tank, 43 artillery pieces, 256 drones, 1 MLRS, 18 cruise missiles, and 1 Bobcat skid steer. All in all, it does appear that it was an incredibly good day today, and that is actually going to be moving us on out of the front lines for a brief moment to talk about something that I've seen a lot of people have been fiending about, and I will make sure to address it a little bit early, just in case if y'all are wondering if we're going to be covering it at all or not. And we are going to be covering it, and y'all all know what I'm talking about. It is the protests in Kyiv. There has actually been a little bit of internal political matters, if you want to call them that have popped up in Ukraine, and it's led to a protest for the first time that we've ever seen pretty much over the entirety of the war. From what we were able to hear, there was about 2,000 to 4,000 protesters involved in this protest inside the city of Kyiv, and considering that this is an internal political matter of a foreign country, I'm personally not going to be weighing in my personal opinions on this. We're just going to be stating the information, the two sides involved, their speaking points, and leave it at that, and make it as neutral as an analysis as we possibly can. But moving on into the information that we have been able to hear that there has been protests about an anti-corruption bill that has just popped up in Ukraine. To explain a little bit about what is going on with this anti-corruption bill, there has been a huge concerted push over the past 10 to 15 years, really over the past 10 specifically, for anti-corruption campaigns inside of Ukraine ever since the Revolution of Dignity. These anti-corruption campaigns have largely been led by completely independent organizations whose job it is to search for, find, and destroy any elements or traces of corruption inside of any of the government systems and institutions inside the state of Ukraine. These pretty much operate completely independent on their own, not connected to the office of the president of Ukraine, not connected to the Ukrainian Rada or any other powers for that matter, to make sure that they are as least corrupt as they possibly can be, at least in practice. Recently, the Ukrainian Rada just ratified a bill inside of their house that would approve for several of these anti-corruption offices to be brought under the direct power of the president of Ukraine through the chief prosecutor's office. This has generally been considered a somewhat divisive issue inside of Ukraine because some people are saying that this is going to allow for these anti-corruption offices to pretty much be used as weapons through the office of the president of Ukraine, whoever that president may be in the present or in the future, to be able to pretty much crush dissent and claim that there was some corruption involved. Others, on the other hand, in support of the president of Ukraine's position on the matter, have stated that this was a vital move, as it does appear that there has been some trace Russian involvement or elements in the government that have not been dealt with by the anti-corruption offices. And for this reason, they want to bring the anti-corruption offices under the control of the chief prosecutor of Ukraine and the president of Ukraine's office to be able to try and deal with this corruption. It has ended up becoming a divisive matter, and at least when this video was filmed of this protest, the bill had not been ratified yet, or at least technically signed off on by the president of Ukraine. We were able to hear later, however, that the president of Ukraine did sign the decree and that this law has now been put into effect immediately, meaning that those specific anti-corruption institutions are now under the direct oversight of the political prosecutor general's office inside of the state of Ukraine. This has been a bit divisive, at least at the moment, and it does appear that a lot of people are saying either that they're in support of the president of Ukraine's position, that they need to continue to root out corruption, and this is the best way to go about it, and others are also saying that this is not the best way to go about it, as this will pretty much lead to eventually these anti-corruption offices being used as weapons by the president of Ukraine against other groups or dissidents inside of the government. And Matthew, what are people thinking about this particular matter inside of Ukraine?
All right. So right now we have a poll running on this very controversial question, and it says Ukraine transferred anti-corruption powers to Zelensky's presidential office and made them unindependent, meaning they transferred them from being an independent body of investigation to transferring them to under the control of Zelensky's office. And what are your thoughts about that? 32% said that was a smart move by Ukraine, while 26% said that was a dumb move, and 21% said it's very nuanced and not very simple to answer in a poll question. And here's the thing. This was not a good optic. I'm not going to try to sugarcoat it at all. This has a very bad look to it. Whether or not it's legitimate for legitimate reasons, that's another thing to debate entirely. But just from the optics, from political viewpoint, from the outside, it looks bad. And it's going to give the Russian propagandists and also those in the United States that don't want to support Ukraine, it's going to give them a very strong narrative to start arguing against Ukraine's support. And this was a bad move by Zelenskyy because it came at a very bad time. He literally just got more aid for Ukraine to fight the war against Russia, and now he's putting it in jeopardy by making this move right here. So here's the backstory. This is the part right here that some people are missing. Zelenskyy is claiming that these anti-corruption organizations that had been created to study the corruption inside of Ukraine and root it out had been infiltrated by Russian spies. That is what he's saying. And yesterday, the SBU claims to have busted a couple of spies in these corruption organizations. And that's the reason why suddenly it's now being made dependent on Zelensky's office, is because of the presence of Russian spies in Zelensky's opinion. So obviously, to me, I would say that even if there were Russian spies in there, they should have probably kept it independent and simply rooted the spies out and left it alone, because now it's making it look like Zelensky's consolidating power, which is going to raise some red flags. Now, me personally, I don't think he's doing that for that reason. I believe he might have had maybe an inclination that there were Russian spies in there because it sounds plausible. But the right move was not to make this dependent on the Zelensky's political office. That was not the right move whatsoever. And the Ukrainian people are very, very unhappy about it. So the good news is the people of Ukraine are out in the streets right now. They're making their voices heard, and that is a sign of a functioning democracy. If it was Russia and they went out there and did that, they'd be locked up or shot. That's the way it would happen in Russia. But in Ukraine, it is a democracy, so they're able to protest, and they're exercising their right as we speak. So, it is what it is. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would generally have to say that it is, it's very nuanced. It isn't really simple. Not a good optic. I will agree with Matthew on that. Not really a good optic on a public perspective. But at the same time, it's a really nuanced sort of a thing, at least at the moment. So I generally had to be with the 21%. But I also want to say that considering that this is an internal domestic political matter in the state of Ukraine, that as an American, I really don't have a lot of stake in the matter. And I generally, at least personally, try and take that approach on really any foreign country. If strategically they serve our purposes on fighting the Russians, the internal situation can look however it looks, and generally we only care about the strategic outlook. We're not trying to be friends with people who are upstanding folks who, go out and water their flowers in their front garden and say hello to the neighbors every single time. Even if this guy was trying to become a dictator, or even if he was saying what he's saying and it ended up being true, that he's just trying to root out any sort of Russian influence, it doesn't really matter that much from an American perspective, because from our perspective, we're just trying to get tied to another economic market to make money off of, and also another strategic partner to have to continue to put the Russians at bay and to continue to put them at a severe disadvantage. That's at least a focus that I would take as an American. Much like, to be entirely honest, on my personal perspective, I don't really care a lot about the internal politics of the UK or Germany, or really getting involved or being vehement about specific topics, because I'm not a citizen of those countries. I can't vote in their elections, and I'm also not affected by their domestic discourse or decisions or actions as an American. A little bit different on an American perspective. I'm actually pretty invested in the internal affairs of the United States. I'm an American, so that would make a good deal of sense for me to be invested in and concerned about the internal domestic interests of the United States. But as far as other foreign countries are concerned, I'm not a citizen of those countries, and so I really more so view them from a detached, one-step removed economic strategic outlook than an actual domestic situation, like some people have been looking at it today in the United States. Because, of course, as you all know, Millions of political people, Congress members and all of that, had to start hopping on this today and either supporting it or shooting it down and trying to turn it into a domestic thing. The issue with that, however, is that no matter what happens in Ukraine, there isn't going to be an impact on the United States. Well, let's just say hypothetically that the president of Ukraine actually does end up becoming a dictator. That really has no impact on us inside the United States. And if we still support the Ukrainians and their conflict against the Russian Federation, at that point, we're pretty much using a dictator to grind down another dictator at the worst case scenario. At the best case scenario, this is still attempting to root out corruption, and he will root out the corruption. We will continue to support him. He will continue to grind down the dictator in the Russian Federation, and we'll still be in a pretty good position. So on a strategic outlook, this really has no real impact on anything, but from a public perspective or sort of a public perception side of things for Ukraine, this could have some negative impacts, at least from what I'm seeing. But with that,
Also, and also another thing as well is the people are out in the streets and they're making their voice heard, like I mentioned. So it's not if now for all the Russian propagandists out there that want to make the argument that Ukraine's falling, look, Zelensky's a dictator. If he was a dictator, he would have the police out there cracking heads if he was a dictator. But that's not happening. The people are free to go out and say what they want. They're protesting right in front of these government buildings, and there's no problem whatsoever. If Zelensky was a dictator, that would not be allowed at all. So the Ukrainian people will sort this out. They're going to obviously have some backlash about it, and that's perfectly healthy. Honestly, if I was a Ukrainian, I would be probably having some backlash about it as well. But the thing is, though, just because there's one issue with this anti-corruption campaign doesn't mean the entire country is going to hell in a handbasket, because the United States has issues similar to that as well, and doesn't mean the entire country of the United States is going to hell in a handbasket. It's just it's a isolated issue that has to get fixed, and the Ukrainians will probably have that fixed probably very quickly, because I think Zelensky's going to find he's having some political issues if he doesn't fix it, and that'll be the end of the story, and they'll go about their merry way. There's no sign of Zelensky becoming a dictator. He's not moving away from the West. He's not putting down the people. He's not putting down other government leaders. That's not the way it's working at all. So, and in fact, this bill made it through the Verkhovna Rada. It was signed by Zelensky, and it followed the democratic process. So, it's all going according to the way it should work, but the bill itself and also the law itself is controversial, which it should get fixed eventually.
yeah, I would agree on that. And also another thing I have to say, I like this is something interesting to me, is that there is a protest in Ukraine about the fact that the anti-corruption offices are being brought under the authority of the president of Ukraine. I can list off in just the past month at least 5 different protests about 5 different things that have happened in every single Western European and Western country in general, including the United States, that are far larger in scale in the terms of people involved, and also the topics being covered are almost the same as the ones that people are protesting about inside of Ukraine. Protests happen anywhere and everywhere in a normal functioning democratic society, and I don't really know why the one in Ukraine is being treated as special. Like, for some reason, if you have a protest in the West, you're exercising your democratic rights. For example, like in America, if you don't like something that the current government or the prior government did and you protested, then you're just exercising your democratic rights. Some people may not like what you're protesting about and may actually support the current administration or government, but you still have a right to protest it, and it's just the normal ebb and flow of the United States. If you do the same thing in Britain or in Germany or in France or in Poland, exact same outset. The government isn't collapsing, the country isn't falling to shit within a month. It's just normal workings. Then when 2,000 people, which is usually considered to be a quite small protest by most measures, usually wouldn't even make the news in most areas of the world, happens in Kyiv against one bill, then it makes international news, and now everyone's saying that the Ukrainian government is going to be collapsing overnight, which doesn't
Because
really...
they're desperate. The propagandists are desperate for anything. They're trying to get their hands on anything they possibly can. Because remember, there's still people here in the United States that are politicians that really despise the idea of supporting Ukraine whatsoever. They don't even really know why we're supporting Ukraine. Like the ones that are against it, all they know is in their head, they've convinced themselves, we don't want to support Ukraine, so find any reason to discredit it whatsoever. They don't realize the reason why we're supporting Ukraine is to try to protect Europe. That's the reason why we're supporting them. And also, it's a nice thing to do for the Ukrainian people. But ultimately, though, we're trying to protect the European allies. That's what we're really trying to do here. And these people that are kind of brain dead, that don't understand really why we're doing it, simply look at it like, oh, look, Oh, I can't stand Ukraine. Let's just stop funding them just for the hell of it. It's stupid. It's dumb. It's not using any intelligence whatsoever. And they saw this today. They saw this line that the Russian propagandists are putting out, and they thought, this is gold. This is perfect. I'm going to run with it. I'm going to try to discredit Ukraine again. And that's exactly what they're doing.
And also, you know, something that's interesting. I really quickly, I want to show you all this because this is just something to support my point. Protests in practically every area of the world are hardly covered at all. Like, here's an example. I just pulled up this Protest News USA on Google, and just from hours ago, there's news about large protests and pretty significant arrests that are going on in some places of the country over protests that are going on right now that hardly get any coverage at all. And not to speak about the substance of the protests, just to speak to the matter that there are much larger protests going on in America right now that don't even get a lick of coverage. They get maybe some articles written on them, and if y'all noticed, all of them were being written by foreign news companies. Nobody in America is covering it. And then if you go and pull up, for example, Britain protests, there's loads of additional information about protests that have been going on literally today and yesterday that are also quite significant in scale, comprised of thousands of people. Not a single real bit of coverage on any of those. And then when it comes to Ukraine, 2,000 to 3,000 people, which comparative to the Ukrainian population is an incredibly small number, and especially for Kyiv, which is as a city of 2 million people. So out of 2 million people living in the city of Kyiv, 3,000 of them came out to protest this bill. And then they come out and then everyone acts like, at least the propagandists are acting like the Ukrainian state is collapsing because people are exercising their democratic right. That's also something interesting to know about these propagandists, is that they do not ever consider that you have a right to disagree with the government, because they exist in an authoritarian mindset. They exist in a mindset to where if a protest is allowed to exist, a country is weak and it shouldn't be allowed to survive. Much like the Russians believe, if you ever protest the Russian government, you get a rifle buttstock to the face, you get thrown in prison, you usually get pressed into service and go to the front. In Ukraine and other Western countries, that is not the case. You can actually just openly protest because you have a right to protest against a government's actions. Whether they're good or not, you still have a right to do it. And so I don't know why in the world this was made into a huge ordeal today, because regardless of whether you believe it's an action that is going to end up consolidating power in the office of the president of Ukraine or not, this is still an action that was democratically selected. It wasn't something that Zelenskyy brought forward like, I'm declaring martial law and suspending the Rada. The Rada literally ratified this today before Zelenskyy signed it himself. Well, actually, the Rada passed it, and then Zelenskyy ratified it into law. So it's not really like it wasn't even an undemocratic process from that end, and it just looks like this might be a small group of people who heavily disagree with this, but it's really nothing more than that. But anyways...
Also, worst case scenario, here's the worst thing that could possibly happen out of this, because, of course, it's always a little bit concerning when you see this happening right in the middle of a war, because any type of political instability can be detrimental to a war effort, especially how deep Ukraine is into it. It could be detrimental, possibly. Worst case scenario is Zelenskyy has to step down. That's the worst case scenario that I see possibly happening. And if that happened, whoever takes Zelensky's place, there's nobody in Ukraine that's arguing, let the Russians take our land. Nobody in Ukraine is saying that. If somebody suddenly appeared that was saying that, you can almost pretty much guarantee that they're a Russian agent of some sort, or at least have Russian interests, because nobody in Ukraine is saying, let's give up our land, let's just walk away from it. Nobody's saying that. So worst case scenario is Zelenskyy falls out of favor and someone else takes his place and carries up the sword to keep the war going and keep pushing Russia back. And that's pretty much it. That's the worst case scenario.
Yeah, I would agree. And you know, and of course, and also I have to say this really quickly. I'm not really married to the idea of specific individuals. If Zelenskyy had to go, he has to go. I mean, you know, he did okay at the beginning of the war, but if he fell out of favor so badly with the public that he was forced to resign, it's not like it's the end of the world. It's not like Zelenskyy was literally the beating heart of the country, and if he leaves the office of the president, the war ends. I mean, hell, Winston Churchill got voted out. I don't know if y'all know this. He got voted out of Parliament literally in the final months of World War II and was replaced with Clement Attlee, and that didn't change at all Britain's ability to continue to fight on the side of the Allies and eventually bring an end to the Second World War. Had no impact on it at all. And even Churchill ended up running out of favor before the end of World War II was over. So, you know, not an incredibly bad scenario if that was the case. But with that, we are going to be moving on from this little rabbit hole and on into the rest of our frontline news, as we were able to hear that some S-300 missile systems were hit and destroyed inside of the Belgorod Oblast. It does appear that these were targeted and destroyed by Ukrainian armed forces earlier today, which is great to hear. Meanwhile, near the Kupiansk area, we also get to see a Ukrainian Mi-24 at work. Take a look. Man, that thing is clean.
That is clean.
Oh. Man, I don't know what was in those rockets, but man, that thing rolled coal on itself when it fired it off. Look at this. Dude, dang.
Man, that thing really just like smoked up the whole area.
Right. Dude, the EPA is going to cite that helicopter for obscene pollution. Oh, here comes the second one. Dang, what is in those rockets? Oh my god, I've never seen them like that before. Usually they burn kind of like whitish yellowish, never like almost solid black. I think that propellant might be a little old, maybe.
Also, by the way, I want to address this as well while we're still kind of like close to the topic. Bama FPV said, "Do you think Putin is pushing the protest coverage inside of Ukraine?" I would say no. One thing that we have to be careful about is we don't want to blame every single opposition to Zelenskyy on the Russians. Like that starts getting into that dangerous political territory of blaming any opposition on the enemy, which is not a good way to operate in a democracy. So I don't think Putin is doing this, or at least behind it. The Ukrainian civilians have a valid complaint with Zelenskyy. Like I personally think it's valid, but it's totally up to them if they want to push it or not. It's their country, it's their government. So if they want to protest it, that's up to them. But I don't think Putin is necessarily like the man in the shadows behind the coverage of it or the protests themselves. It's probably actually being organized by the Ukrainians, which are very vocal about things just like this.
I would have to agree with that for the large part, because also whether like here's something I've got to say as well. As far as it goes inside the United States, because I always generally say on the channel, if you look to the far extremes of either side, you'll usually find that the Russians or the Chinese are bankrolling a lot of the people that I would call extremists politically inside the United States. Those people, even though they are most likely being influenced by a foreign government, have a right to say what they say. A lot of these dictatorial countries understand that that is one of the weaknesses, or I guess you could say really more so like the weak point in the armor of a democratic country is the right to free speech, and through that the dissolution or perversion of public opinion generally. But these extremists still have a right to say this stuff. It's just that if you do not agree with what they're saying, you still generally also have a right to be able to put down what they're, well, not really put down what they're saying, but argue against it with a better argument and simply show that, one, you would have to be stupid to believe this, and two, this person is most likely being supported by some sort of a foreign country, and then three, the government usually would come in at that point if the evidence was clear enough to be like, you now have to register as a foreign agent, making it incredibly clear that they're not really a squeaky clean voice just stating the contrarian position in the country. They generally are actually some sort of a foreign agent being paid or supported by a foreign government to say something and change American public opinion. Same thing in Ukraine. But you generally can't always say that just because people are saying A, B, C, and D, and it's not exactly in support of a current government, that they're clearly enemies of the state and should be shut down and oppressed. Because that starts to walk a very dangerous sort of a line and really starts to cross it to where you go into pretty much a dictatorship, because that's actually what people say in North Korea. Like, people say in North Korea, if you go against our great leader and our Juche ideology, you are clearly an enemy, and you're not looking for the betterment of North Korea, you're looking for its destruction, and you're a wicked traitor and a spy, and we're going to have you executed in a political prisoner camp or a gulag. And so, you know, that's kind of the line that you start to enter into. Kind of like how a lot of people in the United States have got to understand, just because if you agree with the government that's in charge or not, no matter who's in charge, you can't say that they're clearly an enemy of the country wanting to destroy it. I mean, maybe in your opinion, they have bad ideas, but that does not mean that every single time you disagree with someone, they're looking to destroy everyone's way of life and literally render the country no longer operational or as a defunct nation. That's not always the case. Sometimes people just have bad ideas, or ideas that you don't necessarily agree with. Maybe they are good ideas and you just don't agree with them. Who knows? But anyways, with that, we are going to be moving further on down the front and into the Konstyantynivka front, where we were able to see the evacuation of a wounded Ukrainian soldier with a robot drone. We see, I don't know what's up with this camera. They need to clean the lens. But we can see them loading up the wounded Ukrainian soldier onto the drone and getting ready to get him out of there. And we see there was actually a dog on the road, and the drone is now on its way. And we see the wounded man riding on top of the drone. These sorts of drones are starting to become more and more common for medical evacuations as it cuts down on the risk of collateral casualties attempting to evacuate any wounded from the battlefield.
That just looks like such an odd way to transport somebody off a battlefield that's wounded like that. It seems precarious.
Yeah, it does seem pretty precarious, I'm not going to lie. And it also doesn't...
How come they don't like put it like a litter on top of it or something to like to to give them some actual space to lay out on? Like it looks like his front legs are just hanging off the front of the drone.
Yeah, it honestly kind of does look like that. I bet you that's not comfortable. Honestly, at a minimum, you would think they put like a full-length canvas stretcher on the top of it. That's just like fixed in place, kind of like a cot nearly. But they don't really have that. But we can see the drone still going on its way with the wounded on board. Yeah, his feet are just hanging off the front. Like, honestly, that doesn't really look comfortable at all.
Yeah, he kind of honestly looks like roadkill on the top of the thing a little bit.
Bro, it looks like they strapped down the turkey they bought at the market to bring back for Thanksgiving. But moving on from that, and on to our next clip, we also get to see some Ukrainian forces under fire in Konstyantynivka. And y'all wouldn't believe it, it's the Ukrainian police.
Отсюда куда? Туда. Идем? Или ждем? Дохуя?
Holy smokes, it's an AK-74. Man, that's one of the first units I've seen using that in a while.
Man, it is.
Crazy, honestly.
Давай,
Crazy.
да? Прямо.
And we hear rounds coming on in still, and they're continuing to try and get out of the area. But that's the end of that clip right there. And moving on from that and on into the next one, we also got to see the Azov in action near to the Konstyantynivka front. Take a look. We can see them moving in, clearing out buildings, basements, bunkers, throwing in grenades, taking cool pictures and videos, taking prisoners, clearing out more basements, looking cool in the camera. Flashlights.
These guys got some nice kit. Like every time they show like a close-up of one of these soldiers, they're kitted out.
Man, the Azov has got some really good gear, actually. And man, they're moving swift-like.
Man, they gotta flex the gear like every other frame. Like every other frame, some guy dripped out with new gears popping up.
Bro, every other frame ought to have like that meme boom sound effect. Like that boom like thing. Like every time they show them like that. Dude, let me go see. Hold up. Let me let's see. Hold up. Let me go find that, folks. I'm gonna play that meme boom sound. Let's see here. Yeah, like that, man. Like honestly, like this. Ah, dang, I mistimed it. Hold up, I'm trying to like that every single time they pop
yeah,
up.
something like that. Yeah.
Honestly, though, they are kitted out. They're really impressively though. Dude, they said drip or drown, and buddy, they're dripping. They'll take a drip break in the middle of the fighting just to show you the drip. Bro, did they just, like, politely drop a grenade down, like, their air hatch? Hold up. Yeah, he did. Dude, he just went up to their air vent and was like, here you go, and just dropped it right down in there.
That was polite.
Very polite of him. Amazon. Bro, taking a drip break. No joke.
Look at that, man. I'll tell you what, that's a sick photo right there. What a nice class.
Dude, in the Azov, it's a union requirement that you have to have a 5-minute drip break for every hour of combat.
Yeah, yeah, really.
Oh, wait a minute, bro. They copying the NATO symbol now.
Huh. Nulla Nomen. I guess that's like a code word for kind of like NATO or something.
Man, they said no men living past us. Nulla no men.
Damn.
Bruh. They hard like that though. They like from the streets. And you're like, what streets? They from the streets Kryvyi baby. But moving on from that and on down into Zaporizhia. We also got to see the Ukrainians taking down some drones in the 31st Mechanized Brigade. Take a gander at this, folks. We see them here continuing to hit a large amount of these drones. And Paul said it's Latin. Yeah, I know, but it's funnier to make fun of the Latin than actually say it's Latin. If we say it's Latin, we turn into like that little nerd emoji with the glasses and everything. If we make it seem like we don't know what Latin is, it's a little bit funnier.
Are these drones like growing extra pairs of wings or something like that? Is it they had some more than usual?
What, you mean the Lancets?
Yeah, what the hell's up with that? It's like 2 of them put together or something?
Bro, they've always... Dude, the Lancet's really funky looking, actually. Take a look at this thing. Oh, wait, hang on. Lancet drone. Here we go. The Zala Lancet.
Interesting. They have like a version where it's like chopped in half. Like, is that a different model or something?
I think this is the original model. The other one that you're talking about is like some sort of a like modified Zala. Well, but I can't think... well, some sort of a modified Zala Lancet, but I can't think of the actual designation of that one, but it's got larger front wings and then smaller supporting stabilizing wings at the back. But I don't know what that variant's called off the top of my head.
Interesting.
But still, also, man, I like how they got this thing on that chain like a pit bull in this picture.
I gotta hold him back. He's got that dog in him.
Bro, dude, you walk into this thing, Putin's like, wow, what kind of drone is this? And the drone goes, you're like, oh, that thing's vicious. But they never really work. They always get shot down, though. We can also see here a super cam. And another. And another super cam. I don't know why they call them super cams, because the camera on them isn't really that good, actually. Honestly, man, Russian drones look like absolutely gank. Like, I don't know why they look so bad. Oh, there's the one that we were talking about, Matthew, right there. Look. It's the Lancet.
Yeah, it sure is.
Yes, the Lancet with the bigger wings, the smaller supporting ones. I don't know what that's called, but I think it is made by the Zala company, like the Zala Lancet.
I think maybe just an older version of it or something like that.
Actually, I think that one's newer, because the Lancets have been around since the beginning of the war, but these started showing up, at least from what I remember, around like mid to late 2023. So I think these are like a newer modified variant, and the original Zala Lancets with like the dual wing set are fairly rare at this point, I think.
Also, Wubba said the Lancet is a direct ripoff of an Israeli drone. That's kind of interesting. You know, what's kind of a bit silly about Israel? Like, I'm not saying that they sold stuff directly to the Russians, like for the drones right there, but Israel sells a lot of weaponry to our enemies of the United States. Like, it's really kind of weird how they do that. I mean, you know, I guess they're on that grind though, but they're selling stuff to our to our enemies and our friends at the same time.
Let's see here. I'm trying to see. Trying to see if it says anything about it being ripped off from an Israeli drone. Probably wouldn't on Wikipedia. Usually you have to just kind of know what drone it was and what the ripoff was, but a lot about its use in the invasion of Ukraine. Let's see. Oh, hang on. Is it this one? Oh, shoot, it is. The U-Vision. Bro, why does that sound like an I company?
Did they rip it off or did they license it?
That's a good question, because it literally looks like the Hero 400 right there.
Yeah, it really does. Like, go back and see if they licensed this thing or did they just like steal the design and just run with it.
It doesn't say anything about it. I was reading, and I didn't see anything about them even mentioning U-Vision or their Hero 400. But it looks like that is a direct ripoff of some type. Let's see here.
It doesn't say who it's used by or anything like that, or who it's sold to. What's the name of it again? It's called what? The Israeli version?
It's called the Hero 400.
Let's see here. I'm curious real quick. Let's see. Dang, like they're not making this easy at all to find it. I'll have to do some research and get back to you, but I'll have to see if Russia either just copied it or what.
You know, I'm not gonna lie, folks. Knowing the Israelis, they probably sold like a licensed copy to the Russians to make, because that's also what they did with the Lavi with the Chinese, and they've also done that with a lot of other things as well. So not really out of the question that the Israelis would have just sold them that, because they kind of on that grind for that bag, like 24/7, no matter who it is. But moving on from that and out of that little bit of news and down towards Melitopol, we also got to see a significant ammo explosion in the area. The Ukrainians attacked one and hit it. Quite a nice one. Moving on from that, we also got to see down in Olesky, the Russians getting hit. And take a look at this. You see the Russians here carrying a chest of equipment. Actually, it was a wounded man. They just dropped him and they're running now. And they went into that little corner over there and they got hit.
What are they running around? This is like what is this?
This is called the Backrooms, liminal spaces simulated.
It's like those cheap townhomes they're trying to build in the United States and sell them for like $1 million a piece.
Man, that hit too close to home, honestly.
Look at that. I mean, what is this?
I don't even know, honestly. I keep looking at it. I'm like, look at this, dude. What is... Okay, we got to go to Olesky now and try and find this thing. So, let's go to Olesky, which is right here. Okay, so it's... We should be able to find it. Is it this?
What is
shoot, it is, dude. It is. Look. See this? How it has like these like round circular shaped rear areas right here. And then there's this wall, like this little park. So that's all of this right here.
Is there like a street view or something?
No.
No. What's the listing on it? Like, does it say what the thing is?
Oh, it looks like a mansion, honestly. Like, look at that. That looks like almost like a French chateau.
Yeah, I think that might be a mansion. That might be like maybe workers' houses or something behind it. I don't know. It's like a little mini neighborhood.
I don't know what this is, but yeah, so this was filmed around this. So where in the hell was this in particular? So they crawl through a hole in the wall, and then they drop the wounded guy, and then they make a break for it. And at this point, they're literally, we can actually track everything they're doing. They're right here, and then they start running, and then they run back. We can see a mortar round hit in the yard, so it actually missed them a little bit. So then they run past the workers' houses, I guess, and hide behind that wall, and then they get hit behind the wall, and then they're all wiped out. So it appears that the video started here. They ran from here, first round hit right about here, and then they hit behind this wall, and then the second round hit right where they were, and then they, took a long-lasting nap. A real nap. A long-lasting nap. But I'm
also,
still...
man, look at that solar farm over there. Like, is this all one contained Is that a solar farm?
Yeah, it is. It's a solar farm.
Man, I think that might be just for the mansion, actually. This is like a compound or something. Like, I don't know whose mansion that is, but they've got like workers' houses behind it. They got the mansion, they got a solar farm, and they're right next to a water source as well. So this is like a neat little self-contained area. It's pretty neat.
I want to know what the hell this building is, because I wish we could get an address for this, because look, there's like a whole bunch of construction stuff around it. It hadn't been destroyed or hit yet, so I'm guessing that this is pre-war satellite footage, maybe? Let's look around and see if we can see, like, any artillery hits in the city. No. So this looks like it is pre-war, or at least before this became a major battlefield. So what the hell is this? Like, who lived here? Because honestly, man, I would say this is probably like an oligarch's mansion or something, with how large it was, like, it had to have been. But whose? Like, whose was it? What is the... Let's pull this up.
They have good taste in landscaping, that's for sure. It's like a desert around that house.
Olesky Mansion. Is this it? Nah, this isn't it. Let's see here. There's got to be something about this house, right? Like, there's got to be something. Did Zelenskyy buy a $20 million mansion in Vero Beach, Florida? That has nothing to do with Olesky. But let's see.
Is that it right there? The luxurious villa owned by the Ukrainian president? Is that it right there?
No,
Or is that not
it says it's missing Zelenskyy, so it's not it. I'd be dipped. I wish we could pull this up on like Zillow or something and see what that was. I'd be dipped. Like there's nothing on this place at all. But that's what it is. It's been completely destroyed now. Like it's been bombed into oblivion. But I'm so interested in it because also I don't know why they have like the near Syrian style outhouse buildings behind it. Like it's all very confusing to me. It makes no sense. And also look at this. Everything else around this mansion is abandoned. Like the buildings are falling apart and everything.
Yeah. I
Like
think they overbuilt for the neighborhood.
I think they did. I honestly think, man, the property values are going to be kept low. Like some Gopnik walks out of this building every morning and fires off an AK in the air for like a good 30 seconds to keep the property values low. But that is just so interesting, though. And also, it wasn't even sodded yet when we're looking at it here. Like there was no grass or anything yet.
And what town is this in again?
This is in Olesky, on the Konka River.
Okay, I'm going to do some research in the background while we go through the news still.
Yeah, man, do some research on it. Do some research. I want to know. Like, I really want to know. What the hell is this? Wait, hang on. Fassenda, a holiday apartment. What the hell? Okay, hold up. We might be getting some answers here. No, we're actually being left with more answers, more questions than answers now. I don't know what this is. This looks like a kill house, honestly. Like, I don't know what this is. Very, very questionable looking, in my opinion. Yeah, really questionable. You know, it's interesting, that I'll say. I just can't make heads or tails of this. There's got to be a street view somewhere, right? Like, somewhere? Okay, hold up. What does it look like in front of the mansion? Okay, this is...
Is it the Olesko Castle, or known as the Zelenskyy Castle? It's a historical landmark. That's what they're saying it is.
I would assume it's not historical. The thing looks brand new. Is it the... let's see.
Zoom out and show me the like geographical area real quick. Let's see the overall view.
So a mouse
Okay,
cursor
so
is
it's
on
down here.
Zelenskyy. It's at the mouth of the Dnipro River. And then you zoom in here. It's on the eastern side of the city of Zelenskyy in what appears to be an industrial area right alongside the Konka River.
Interesting. So let's see here. Zelenskyy Castle. Let's see if that is it. No, it's not the Olesko Castle. That's in Lviv, which is in a different part of the country. So, no, that's not it. I can't really make any heads or tails about it. If it's something that's open to the public, then they're not making it easy to find, that's for sure.
I don't think it was open to the public. This looks like a private house to me, of someone who was quite wealthy. Because these also look like multiple car garages out here. So it had to have been someone who was a little bit important. I wish some people could figure out what this is, because I think you and me, Matthew, are stumped on it right now. I don't think we're making any headway here, but very interesting that this video was filmed around it, because there's the building. That's what it actually looks like today, and it looks like most of it's gone at this point. But anyways, with that, we are going to be moving on from that clip and on up into Kyiv, because now it's time for the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, and he also addressed the whole protest side of things and everything else in his speech today. So without further ado, here is the speech. Peach!
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці. Довгий був день, емоційний. Нарада з нашою переговорною командою. Рустем Умєров очолив делегацію на наступну зустріч з російською стороною. Ми узгодили, що саме має бути аджендою зустрічі, які теми ключові для України, звільнення наших людей з російського полону має продовжуватись. І зараз, саме зараз, вже почались необхідні процедури для нового обміну. Ми завтра чекаємо наших людей. І я дуже сподіваюся, що завтра все нам вдасться. Ми стараємось, зокрема, завдяки нашим партнерам, міжнародним посередникам, стараємось забезпечити звільнення також цивільних заручників і повернення наших дітей, які були викрадені Росією. Завдання працювати щодо припинення вогню – це те, про що говорить Росії весь світ. Завдання – працювати для організації зустрічі лідерів. Це те, що може наблизити мир. Україна ніколи не хотіла війни. І саме Росія повинна закінчити цю війну, яку ж сама почала. Я вдячний всім партнерам, які допомагають. В нашій делегації всі, хто може говорити по кожній необхідній деталі. Були важливі рішення для нашого захисту, щоб дати більше безпеки нашим містам і нашим громадам. Є нові контракти на дрони-перехоплювачі, і це на додачу до вже викуплених нами обсягів на виробництво дронів, в тому числі у партнерів. Ще 4 значних контракти на більш ніж 3 мільярди гривень. Військові, а також міністерства, передусім міністр оборони Денис Шмигаль, перший віце-прем'єр-міністр Михайло Федоров займаються цим питанням. І захисних дронів має стати більше. Так само ми забезпечуємо все необхідне контрактування на дрони для фронту. Саме ті, які найбільше допомагають. І обов'язково продовжимо нашу програму Deep Strike. Затвердив нові обсяги, і це, звісно, велика допомога. Російська логістика, російські військові підприємства, все, що працює на агресію, є законними мішенями. Були доповіді з фронту, особливо це наш Покровський напрямок, деякі інші ділянки фронту на Донеччині. Непроста ситуація, але я вдячний кожному нашому підрозділу за стійкість, за очищення нашої землі від окупанта і за реальні результати для захисту нашої держави, наших міст, наших людей. Захист – це не ритуальне слово. Це конкретний захист позицій України на фронті, захист життя людей, конкретний захист українського національного інтересу. Завершити війну, завершити достойно і саме так, щоб зберегти нашу українську незалежність. І це буде. Я дякую всім, хто воює і працює заради української держави, заради українського народу. Я дякую всім, хто допомагає. Ще одне. Говорив з керівником НАБУ Семеном Кривоносом, прокурором САП Олександром Клименком, генеральним прокурором Русланом Кравченком, головою Служби безпеки України Василем Малюком. Різні виклики. Ми все це обговорили. Антикорупційна інфраструктура працюватиме. Тільки без російських впливів. Від цього треба все очистити. І справедливості має стати більше. Звісно, що НАБУ і САП будуть працювати. І важливо, що Генеральний прокурор налаштований на те, щоб в Україні реально забезпечувалась невідворотність покарання для тих, хто йде проти закону. І це те, що дійсно потрібно для України. Справи, які лежали, мають розслідуватись. Роками посадовці, які втекли з України, чомусь спокійно живуть за кордоном. В дуже приємних країнах і без юридичних наслідків. Це ненормально. Немає жодного раціонального пояснення, чому кримінальні провадження на мільярди висять роками. І немає жодного пояснення, чому росіяни досі можуть отримувати інформацію, яка їм необхідна. Важливо, щоб без росіян. Важливо, щоб була невідворотність покарання і щоб суспільство це дійсно бачило. І ще, щоб не було жодних фейків та інформаційних спекуляцій. На жаль, втратили наш бойовий літак. французьку машину, дуже ефективно, один з наших міражів. Пілот встиг врятуватись, і це не було російським збиттям. Сили нашій армії додамо. Слава Україні!
And Slava. And with that, that's the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy here on day 1245 of the World News Stream. And that's going to be moving us on into the second segment of the stream where we get to talk to each and every single one of y'all. And I got to say, what an amazing stream it has been. There's been a lot of news tonight, quite a lot. And I also got to thank the amazing, almost 13,000, it was 12.9 thousand people who are here tonight, and about the 84,000 people who have watched so far. We are entirely honored and appreciative to know that we are able to be y'all's primary source of news from everything that's going on around the world every single day. We're entirely honored and appreciative of that. And I also got to thank y'all for being here tonight while we congratulate and celebrate Matthew's 25th birthday. And so with that in mind, Matthew, I understand that we have one last question, one last bowl that we have asked of the audience. And also, Matthew, have you been able to find out what the place was inside of Olesky?
No, so sadly I couldn't figure out what it was. I believe it might be a private residence, though. I'm pretty sure it is, but I couldn't figure out if it was whose private residence it was.
Man, I honestly couldn't figure out heads nor tails of it either. I was over here trying to find it, and I was like, I just can't find squat on this. Like, honestly, y'all, this is a mystery to me now what this even was. But anyways, with that in mind, Matthew, I understand that we have one last question that we have asked of the viewers, and I am wondering, what is it, and what are we talking about?
All right. So the poll says, do you think Zelenskyy is best suited to carry on the Ukraine war effort against Russia? A pretty straightforward question. 64% said yes, he's the best candidate for it, while 16% said no, it's time for him to move along, and 10% said it really doesn't matter. And I'm going to say this as simply as possible and as direct as possible. And I know some people are going to find it a little bit, I guess you could say, too direct, but this is how I really feel about it. Zelenskyy is accomplishing Western interest. He's doing exactly what we want him to do, and that's good enough for me. If the Ukrainian people have an issue with him domestically, that's up to the Ukrainian people. But for us, Zelenskyy is doing the job we need him to do at the moment. So I think he's the best candidate for the job, and he is pushing the Russians back, and he's exactly who we need from a U.S. standpoint. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say that in my opinion, I would agree entirely with Matthew. Are we here in the United States to make a personal vouch for the viability of a specific president of Ukraine? No, we are not. Have we ever been? No. Should we? No. I don't really think it's really the place of citizens of foreign countries to have an input inside of the foreign affairs of another. If you're not a citizen of that country, you really don't have that much of a say on their internal affairs, unless if it's something like a crime against humanity or something along those lines, like a genocide, then that's when you can generally pipe in and say, hey, that's pretty messed up. But beyond that, on the domestic political level, there really isn't a lot that we can say about the Ukrainians from an American perspective. The truth of the matter is that as an American, I'm looking out for American interests. And American interest is to put the Russians down and out. And whatever actions we have to take, whoever we have to support to get the Russians down and out, we will. And so far, as long as they're not terrorists, of course, and so far, the Ukrainians are generally that group. It doesn't really matter what's happening domestically inside their country. It doesn't really make a hill of beans of difference to me. It didn't really make a hill of beans of difference to prior American administrations when we supported, let's see here, let me think of all of the examples. Oh, yes, the dictatorship in Taiwan, the dictatorship in South Korea, the Emperor of Japan, even after leading the Japanese through the Second World War, at least in a symbolic role. It didn't really affect us on supporting the Shah, who was an installed dictator by the United States inside of Persia. It didn't really stop us from supporting the Israelis throughout the entirety of the Cold War, which largely could be described as a dictatorship through some periods of that time. It also didn't stop us from supporting, let's see, the Contras or the Mujahideen, or pretty much the predecessor to the Taliban. It didn't stop us from supporting, let's see, who else? Matthew, help me refresh my memory here. Who else are the people who would be questionable that we have supported through history that have been in America's interest?
Soviets?
Well, not the Soviets. We went up against those people. We hit them from time to time.
I thought we were aligned with them at one point, though.
When in particular? Maybe you're
We
right.
had to defeat the Germans.
Oh, yes, yes. Actually, I was thinking about the Cold War when you were saying that. I was like, when? But yeah, you're actually right. We did team up with the Soviets during World War II just to beat the Nazis, just for the hell of it. Although they were clearly not our friends. Let's see. Who else would we team up with? Let's see here. Oh yeah, the Vietnamese. I forgot to tell you all about that. South Vietnam was never a democracy. It was always a dictatorship the whole time we were fighting there. So, had no problem with that. No qualms, no issues. And generally that's been the way it's been run. I don't know what it is these days, though, with people of foreign countries acting like they have a say in another country's internal affairs. Because I always remember, folks, here in the United States, when it was a huge row whenever they said, oh, there was interference by the Russians or the Chinese, because there's been a lot of that thrown around in the past 10 years. And when it happens to us in America, we always go, how dare these foreign countries act like they ever have an invested interest in meddling with our internal political affairs. And honestly, I agree. Every single time anyone brings it up on any side, whether they say it's the Chinese or the Russians or anyone, I personally think that none of them have a say. Like, for example, when one side or the other says, oh, Erdogan said this, and the fat guy in Hungary, Viktor Orban, said that, and, let's see here, who else? Boris Johnson says this, or the current Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, says that. It's like, I don't really care. And it's like, I really don't think they have an input in the internal politics of our country. They're not citizens of the Republic. They have no say. And also, on an equal footing, we have no say in anyone else's internal affairs domestically either. We have an input on their strategic affairs on a global diplomatic stage, because everyone always has a say on that, whether they agree or disagree with foreign affairs. But on the domestic political matter, we have no say. Like, as far as my input as an American speaking about our allies, we have no say. If y'all want to do whatever you want inside your country domestically, that's on you. If it turns into a foreign policy change, then that's something that could end up impacting us, and then we do have a say, and y'all also have a say on us. But that's generally how it works. So as far as Ukraine's going, Zelenskyy has been leading the country in generally a consolidated government against the Russians for 3.5 years. They've inflicted massive casualties onto the Russian army. They are causing untold economic damage to the Russian Federation. And for that reason, he is checking all the boxes that I would be concerned about from an American foreign policy standpoint. If he turned into a dictator, that's unfortunate. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. He won't be able to get Ukraine into EU or NATO if he wanted to at that point, because we don't allow in dictatorships that are wildly corrupt. If he actually is doing this to fight corruption, well, good on him. Turns out that that's fine. Either way, he's achieving America's interests, and that's all that I'm really concerned about at the end of the day. And so with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention a couple of the allies that we have in the modern day that are really questionable. Didn't we forget to mention those, Matthew? Like all of those strict, almost dictatorial monarchies in the Middle East, like Saudi Arabia, which literally has no legislative body. They just have the royal family of Saudi Arabia. Nothing wrong with that. As an American, I could care less, because it's like, as long as Saudi Arabia is doing us some good inside of the Middle East by being an ally with them, that's all that the United States cares about. We don't really care about their internal politics or how their government functions. If their people don't like that, they can have an issue with it. It's not America's problem, however.
Yeah, I would agree. Also, by the way, I think Measure Man might have found our mansion, by the way, actually. He said Oleshki Mansion. The report identifies 2 likely candidates: the Countryside Complex Grand Prix, the primary match, adjacent to Oleshki Solar Farm with formal gardens. Maybe that's it. Like Grand Prix, I don't want to sound ignorant here, but I mean, that would require a racetrack, I believe, wouldn't it? Unless they're using a different term for that. But pull that up, Enforcer. Jamie, Countryside Complex Grand Prix.
Countryside Complex Grand Prix. The Grand Prix Plaza. Let's take a little. Okay, so I'm finding racetracks, which is. Yeah, it's racetrack. So it doesn't really look like it's in Ukraine per se.
Punch in Ukraine. Punch in Ukraine behind it and see what it pulls up.
Still not finding it.
Yeah, I knew it had to be a racetrack. I was about to say, if they're using the word Grand Prix to describe a mansion, I've never heard of that before.
But I saw NJB say it's the Volitsia Vardiskia. Let me put that in really quickly. Off air, by the way. Let me take this off air and do that really quickly. Not that I don't trust you, it's just that we don't know what they'll pull up. Oh, okay. Oh, I see. So let's see here. So that is technically the name of the street that it's on, but that still doesn't give us the name of the building.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think I am almost certain this has to be a private residence because with this little information on it, it must be private.
Yeah, I mean it's right on the Conca River too, which seems like prime property if you wanted to build a house anywhere in the area is to build it right along a river of a type, so that way you could go like boating, fishing, do that sort of a deal. So yeah, it seems to me like that would make a good amount of sense that this is some sort of a really high-end private residence. The type of which you never really see in Ukraine. Like a house of this size in Ukraine, almost unheard of. So this had to have been an oligarch expansion before the war.
Probably so. A very rich oligarch, one that could afford workers' houses, a solar farm, and a little bit of gardening to go with it.
Yeah, something crazy, actually, Matthew, is that I found a hotel out here near Slough, the Cliveden House. Have you ever heard of this hotel?
Yeah, I think I have.
Dude, this thing is crazy. It's like $650 a night, but you get to sleep in this, like in eat in the restaurants in this place. Really crazy, actually. And they do really nice car shows here. And
Oh, man, I'll take the car. Screw the hotel. I like this Aston right here. This is pretty nice.
screw the hotel. Dude, have you seen this hotel? Look at this. This is unreal.
Nah, man, this is second rate. That Aston outside is where it's at.
Let's see here. That Aston Martin. Let me see if I can find.
Man, that's a nice Aston.
Man, look at that Aston. Like, man. Look, dude, look, lamb shanks. Wow.
Oh, posh. So nice. Some rare meat. Here, have some meat.
You want some meat? But
Oh,
anyways.
man, here's some meat.
Aw, man, time to make a meme about them because I flopped. Man. But beyond that, this is really, really impressive, like, as a hotel. I was like, wow. I was like, that is really neat. And it's right outside of Cookham. Have you ever seen what Cookham looks like, Matthew?
Not lately, I haven't.
It's pretty neat. It's like a classic old British town.
Well, that is neat right there. That's very nice.
Very, very nice indeed. Pretty cool. Pretty cool, actually. And look, it's the Cookham Bridge with boats and sunsets and wonderful views. This honestly looks like almost like the place around Eton College in Windsor. You know what I'm talking about, right? Like when we took that footbridge over to Eton College. We never went to Eton College, by the way. We're not purebred enough for Eton. But still, pretty interesting stuff. Also, by the way, if y'all are wondering where I'm talking about, it's right here. I can actually drop y'all down on this bridge and show it to you. This is the footbridge I'm talking about. And right over here, on this side of the bridge, right beyond the corner, is Eton College, which is pretty high-end. I think it's a boys' college is what it technically is, right down here. And this is usually where a lot of Britain's, I guess you could say, elite children go to school. A lot of the prime ministers of Britain actually went to Eton College when they were kids, and pretty much all of the boys in the royal family, they all go to Eton College. So it's a fairly commonly known thing in Britain that if you're of the upper crust, if you want to call it that, you're from Eton College most likely, or Eton College learned, if you want to call it that.
Those posh kids, the ones that ride on rovers and head to London on Mayfair, those posh kids, the ones that talk about great supine protoplasmic jellies on the
Invertebrate
weekend.
jellies.
Yes.
Also, by the way, is right next to Windsor Castle, which this is the greatest thing about Windsor Castle. It is right under the approach lanes of London Heathrow. Literally, like every plane that flies in on an approach from the west side of Heathrow, they generally fly over Windsor. But also, if you're in London, you'll also see them coming in on approach. If the eastern approaches are open, they usually fly kind of over London, and then they take a hook over Dartford or Ilford, and then they fly right over Buckingham Palace and Westminster back towards the approaches of Heathrow Airport. So literally every single royal residence and property in the greater London area is right under an approach lane to Heathrow. So not exactly quiet, most of the time. Like you would usually hear a jet somewhere.
That's you got to scrutinize the property, make sure it's got good property value. Because as far as I'm aware, I think living next to an airport is not considered high property value. It's not good.
Yeah, it generally isn't. And it's just the craziest thing, man, because if you measure from the very edge of Windsor Castle, which is actually where the royal family is most of the time, they are only 4 miles away from the very tip of the runway 09 left, it seems, at Heathrow, which isn't far.
Interesting. That's very close.
Yes, very close. And you know what's even funnier, man, is that Heathrow keeps on wanting to expand into 2 new runways in these reservoirs right out here, meaning that Windsor Castle would literally be pretty much on the edge of the approachways of the runways if Heathrow ever expands into a 4-runway airport.
Yeah, I wouldn't want that if I was living nearby.
No, I wouldn't either. Everyone in Windsor, they lose their property value overnight. Everyone in Slough, they never had property value anyway, so they're fine. That won't really impact them too much. And in the Clifton House, I guess they get a little bit of extra business. I guess they technically become an airport hotel at that point. But still, interesting stuff. Also, by the way, I don't know if this is true, folks. I'm just kidding about Slough. But I've heard some British people say that the best way to see Slough is on the train at like 125 miles an hour, not stopping. And I personally don't remember Slough being that bad when we went through. It looked fine to me. But
If the best way to see it's on the train going 100 miles an hour, shouldn't they rename it to like Fost or something like that instead of Slow?
Bro, they named it Slow, hoping that people would slow down enough so that way they could rob them with shivs on the side of the railway tracks as they were coming through. Oh man! But this is a part of the Great Western Main Line coming out of London is Slough, and then Reading. And then from there you generally can go anywhere in the country, because I think from Reading the line branches off to Oxford and also to Bristol, Bath, and everywhere else in the country. But a little bit of an interesting sort of a thing with that. But still, interesting fact. But outside of that, I would have to generally say, folks, that house down in Zelenskyy is still a mystery. Like, we can talk all about this area out here. Still a mystery what the hell that house is down in Zelenskyy. And also, I just saw Mark Buck say, slow as a shithole. That's crazy, because coming from Alabama, it actually looked really nice. Don't you remember it, Matthew? Like, we drove through slow to get to Windsor.
Yeah, I think I do remember that, yeah.
Let's see here. Let me see if I can... Oh, there's the Tesco Extra. They have extra in there. What extra of what, you say? Extra crime. But beyond that...
This is criminal?
Yeah, this is supposedly crime-ridden around here.
Huh, I mean, it doesn't look crime-ridden. I mean, it looks kind of nice.
Honestly, it looks really nice. Honestly, man, everyone in the world is spoiled. I tell you, spoiled. If y'all lived in Alabama, everything looks nice compared to most parts of Alabama. Like, there's a little part of Alabama that's nice, which is like the Homewood, Mountain Brook area. But beyond that, it's not really nice anywhere else in Alabama. This is crazy nice looking compared to anywhere in Alabama.
Yeah, I think so. Like, it's honestly kind of disgraceful, actually. It looks so much nicer. This is the bad area.
Yeah, this is the bad area. This is the and also this is the station that they have, which is also pretty nice. Like, it's a Victorian era station, but they keep it up, so it looks pretty nice still. And it's like, this isn't bad at all. You know what blows my mind, people, about every train station in America? Look at this. Elevated platforms, right? That's normal for all of y'all in the world. Y'all know what most American train stations have? We have ground level platforms. Let me go show y'all one. You know what? Let me go to Birmingham. I'll show y'all our ground level platform. So right there, boom, look at that. No elevation, literally in line with the ballast of the tracks. So every time a train stops, they have to get everyone out, all of the conductors and all of the attendants for the cars, and they have to put out a footstool, like, for you to get on the train with, because the platforms are not level with the actual doorway. And it's outrageous that that's the case. Because it's like, it doesn't cost a lot of money to create elevated platforms in most of the country. And in most of the U.S., you will not find elevated platforms. They're, like, non-existent outside of the Northeast Corridor. And it just makes it uncomfortable, because it's like, you just can't easily hop on and off the train. There's got to be this whole process to it. Holy moly. Wow, that's a high hood. That's cool. That's rare. But outside of that, let me see. Let me think here, Matthew, really quick. I'm trying to think. Where would a high level station? Oh, let me show it to you. I know where some would be. They'd be up near New York. Newark is what we're looking for. Yeah. So this one here. This is the Newark International Airport train station, because the International Airport at Newark actually does have a train station, and it's actually pretty drippy. But look at this. Hold up. Let me see if I can get one that zooms in. Dang, dude, those cars look clean.
That's not too bad looking, actually.
Yeah,
not bad at all.
That's like modern. That's like actually modern. That's crazy. But where the hell is the platform, man? Like, where is a picture of one at the side? What is this? Whoa. Look at that. Look at that garbage. But where the hell is it? Oh, man. Oh, here we go. Look at that. It's just a concrete pad held up with, like, pillars. Kind of, like, undrippy, honestly. But I do like the giant text, Newark International Airport, on top of the station. It's a fairly modern station. It does look drippy, I will say. But
it does look nice. Also, Jamie, how did you get off on this topic? Like, how did we get off on this?
I don't know. We were talking about, like, we were talking about something. I don't know, slow, like how nice it is compared to other places. You know what, Matthew? What about that Salt Lake City area with that front runner? What does it train station look like? What does it look like?
I think it was kind of near what the Salt Lake City area calls the hood.
I don't think so. This looks pretty nice. And also, look, they have an elevated platform, actually. Well, it's not, it's ground level until you get on the train, and then it actually becomes an elevated platform. So, look, even they have that here. Why don't they have that in most stations here in the South? I don't know. Like, it's a big question to me why they always want to make them ground level. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. Weird rabbit hole to get down. But anyways, with that, it is time for us to get on into some questions and also a poll. I think we had a poll that we had to talk about. And Matthew, did we already talk about it? And if we did, what kind of questions do we have?
Yeah, we already addressed the poll. The poll is finished. So with that, folks, thank you all for answering that poll a good bit earlier. And we're now going to jump right into our Super Chat questions proper and right back into them, which goes to BC Skyman, which I believe already left for the night. But thank you very much, BC, for that generous $100 donation right there. Massive support. And he said, happy birthday, Matt. And thank you, BC. If you're watching tomorrow, he said, congratulations and hope it's awesome. And hard to believe it's been over 3 years. And you and Andrew, lunch on me.
Hey, and a big thanks to you for the support, BC Skyman. And once again, a big happy birthday to Enforcer Matt, who turned 25 today. Can you all believe that? He was born in the year 2000. Crazy, right? Crazy. That's nuts. He was literally born at the beginning of the century. And that's actually kind of neat.
I was born 1 year before that disaster.
We don't talk about that. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, we don't talk about that.
We don't talk about that. But it's crazy because he's really lucky. He has to do no math for his birthday. Whatever year it is, that's generally how old he is. So he's really lucky with that because every time I have to figure out how old I am, I have to go, okay, it's this year minus 2 because I was born in 2002. So then I'm like, okay, now I'm like 23. Because honestly, I totally forgot a couple of days ago how old I was because for some reason I was thinking about it. I was like, how old am I? I was like, hell if I know. I'm like 24. 22? I don't know. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm 23. I'm like, I'm 23. Crazy. I don't really think about that stuff too much with like how old I am anymore. Like, I'm like, I don't know. But beyond that, I do thank you for the big happy birthday wishes, BC Scammon, to Enforcer Matt. BC is very appreciative of it, and we will make sure to have a lunch on you, BC Scammon. A huge thanks to you once again for being an old guard and a channel legend, and massively supporting this channel, and also giving Matthew some huge birthday wishes. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Measure Man, who puts in a 50. And thank you, Measure Man, as well for that support. And he said, happy birthday to Matt. And thank you, Measure Man. He said, to enjoy your custom-made and fan-created birthday tune, Google Tariffed Penguins Suno. And the song is called Marvelous Mayhem and is pinned to the profile. Enjoy and bring out the banjo for the live play-along. Much love. You created a whole AI song for it? Like, that's crazy, honestly. I haven't been on Suno in a minute, by the way. I think we actually made one of our pieces of music on Suno at some point. I can't remember which one it was, but that is cool right there. But thank you very much for the happy birthday wishes. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta say, a huge thanks to you for the support. And thank you for creating a song. We'll have to take a look around a gander, I tell you, after the stream. And I gotta thank you massively for helping this channel to keep running. And I also gotta say on top of that, also as well, we will make sure to pull out the banjo. I actually don't have a banjo with me right now. It's off in the storage unit somewhere. But we will have to find the banjo. Oh, we will have to play it. And so, a big thanks to you for the support. Help this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. I also saw some people go, oh my god, they're in their early 20s? Oh, actually, Matthew's technically now directly in his mid-20s. The midlife crisis is going to be hitting us very soon at that. But beyond that, I would have to say, yes, we are quite young indeed. And it's a little bit crazy, because we are always having to battle to validify what we're saying in this sector, because simply for the fact, like, we honestly, like, not like tooting our own horn, but Matthew, our analysis, like, combined, is very good. Like it's as good as anyone else's, usually better. Like not like trying to be like arrogant or anything, but it usually is because we usually get things correct more so than others. And simply for the fact that we're in our mid 20s or early 20s, we're discredited at every single approach by other people in the category because, you know, like they're in like their 40s or 50s or something like that. Some of them do. Some of them actually respect us a lot, and I appreciate those folks. But some of them go out of their way to discredit us simply for the fact that we're young. And for some reason, you can't be smart when you're young. Like, according to those people, you have to be stupid. And I don't really know why that's the case. But that's generally also why we don't talk about our age too much, because when we just talk, everyone's like, wow, you know, like that's actually really good analysis. And then when we throw in, oh, by the way, we're like in our mid-20s, then for some reason, then all of our great analysis starts to become discredited. It's a very ageist sort of a thing. I never believed in ageism until I started running a YouTube channel, and then Matthew hopped in and we both started running it. And then I was like, okay, ageism is really a thing where people will really treat you like crap if you're too young or too old from what someone would perceive for you to do something. But with that, I hope that does address that quite well. And with that, it is time for us to move on to the next one. But a big thanks to you so much once again and helping us to keep this thing running.
All right, so our OSINT winner of the night is Estefano. Estefano figured out what the house is that we were trying to figure out the entire time, and we have all the answers. And the reason why I could not find it is because the website is in Ukrainian. It's on a Ukrainian domain, and I wasn't searching for that. So Estefano was able to find it. So top tier skills and work on your part, and thank you very much for that. I want to give you your credit. And basically, to give you the overall story of this right here is a mansion. It's apparently illegally built house of Kherson millionaires. The story is, according to this article, and once again, I'm not sure if this story is valid or not, but this is what the Ukrainian article says. It says, when a scandal broke out in the media, some individuals forced officials of the Kherson Regional State Administration to forge a number of documents, and they partially changed the boundaries of the monument. And apparently, so it looks like this house is caught up in a scandal, actually. But now it's not concerned at all because the thing's been hit and destroyed, apparently by a MiG-29, a Ukrainian jet, came in and hit the thing. So it looks like, let's see here. So yeah, it was a businessman. Some businessmen of Ukraine actually built this thing right here, and apparently they didn't have the proper permits, at least according to the article. And it mixed up in a lot of controversy. And I guess all the stuff that was built around it is belonging to that house, apparently from the sounds of it. So yeah, it's apparently an oligarch.
Dang, that's wild, actually. Like, that was a decent guess on our end to think it was an oligarch, because no one else would afford to be able to build this. But that is actually crazy. So it's apparently a part of that little oligarchical corruption thing that existed in Ukraine before the war. So interesting, and now it's no problem.
It sounds like maybe someone was trying to build it. Apparently, they didn't want this built there or something. Whoever was in the town, but the individuals that wanted to build the mansion apparently were like, "We don't give a damn. We're building it anyway," and they just went ahead and built the thing. So, end result is the Russians went inside of it, hunkered down, and the Ukrainians came in and just bombed the whole damn thing. Apparently,
you know what this sounds like, man. This almost sounds like the Scrushy house. You know what I mean? Like the one here in Birmingham.
Well, that one's not in Birmingham, I don't think. That's on Lake Martin, I think.
Well, which one's the one in Birmingham? You know, the big one that I'm talking about? It's like 50,000 square feet. How many?
Yeah, I take it back. He actually had two houses. He had one on Lake Martin, I think, and he had one up here in Altadena in Birmingham. Yeah, I think you're right.
We've got to find that one. We have to find it. Where the hell is it? It's
Altadena Road or something like that. It's off one of those roads. It's in a neighborhood, like off that like mountain road.
It's got a like a giant. Here it is, the Scrushy Mansion. This one.
No, that guitar house right there. That's not the Scrushy Mansion. I don't think. I don't. Is that his? Like, I don't know.
Let's see. It's the Montague. Let's type this in. The Montague house. They ought to find it for us. Let's see here. The Larry House resident, or the Guitar House, as it's called the Guitar House by everyone in Alabama. I think Scrushy had another house somewhere in Birmingham. Let me see if I can show you some pictures.
Altadena Road.
Yeah, we'll have to go show that one here in a second. But this is the house. This actually is not that far from us, because we're in Birmingham. It's like maybe like not too far at all. But this is the house, 50,000 square feet. It's been abandoned pretty much the entire time it's existed. But it was designed off of like a French chateau or something like that. Absolutely insane to build in this area because it's also surrounded by like nothing.
It is insane to build in the area. This thing right here is literally like out in like it's hard to
boonies.
describe it. It's like boonies isn't the right word. Like it's out in the woods, I guess you could say. It's in a neighborhood, but the neighborhood is like really, really spaced out. It's like not even really a neighborhood. It's just like a loose association of houses. This thing right here, I think it might be actually for sale right now, actually.
Yeah, I think it still is for sale. No one's ever bought it, and I think they keep lowering the price on this thing too, because of that. But it was well outfitted. I mean, you know, it's no joke. This thing is insanely big. Because if y'all don't know, like an average mid-sized supermarket is 50,000 square feet. So the square footage in this house is the same square footage you would find in like a normal supermarket. Like not a Walmart, but like a Publix or a Kroger or something like that. That's about the same square footage that's inside of this house. So a little bit insane to build in Alabama, and no one's ever going to buy this because no one ever comes to live in Alabama hardly that has that kind of money to shell out. And then there was a load of guest houses built around, and then it's backed up to normal neighborhoods like this one. This is literally right across, like that tree line back there is what divides that house from what is generally a normal, like higher middle class sort of a neighborhood of a sense. But
That's
it's in
crazy, honestly.
it's
Like, I don't
just
know, those houses are such wastes of money, like, they really are. There's so much money to upkeep those. It's just honestly, like, I don't wanna sound like one of those people that, like, hates on people that has, like, mansions and stuff like that. Like, if you have the money for it, go for it, but honestly, it's like it's kinda like ego on display. Like, I will agree with that to a certain degree. It's just it's unnecessary, like, it really is. Like, if you see this thing in person, like, just driving by it, it is ridiculous. Like, you look at it and you think, "What the hell?" Like, why would you want that? Like, really, why would you want it, and why would you have it? Because it's like you're sinking endless amounts of money into maintaining the property, mowing it, keeping the place from falling apart. Anything that breaks is, like, in the tens of thousands. I mean, it's crazy.
they fill in the pool.
I think it's just green because they haven't cleaned it or something.
Bro, I think they filled in the giant pool. Like, there's like a little one that's greened over right there, but there was also a giant one behind it. I think they literally filled it in.
Maybe so.
I think, yeah, I think they did. That's wild. But yeah, this thing is absolutely outrageous. I'll be honest with y'all, folks. The only reason people get big houses like that, because like the thing that a lot of people don't think about with a massive house like that is the upkeep on it. And at that point, there's so many toilets, there's so much plumbing, there's so much that can go wrong with these houses. The air conditioning bill is expensive. The electricity is expensive. Everything about this is insanely expensive. You're spending like probably, I would guess, 50 grand a month on maintenance for a house this size, probably. And also lawn care is insane because you can't go out and just mow a lawn that's like 20 acres size. You have to have a whole lawn crew that's literally hired just to maintain your own property. So you're literally bankrolling a whole groundskeeping crew at that point. You pretty much have to have a building manager at that point as well that takes care of everything. So then at that point, you're up in like the 80, 90 grand a month sort of a category to maintain this thing, and for nothing really. Like, it doesn't really make too much sense at all. And honestly, from our personal experience, anyone who buys or owns a house like this, they're very, very transactional kind of people. Like, not to say that all of them are, but some of them are, and a lot of them that we've ever run into in our personal experience are very transactional sort of a people, and it's all about boosting their ego and feeling like the king of the hill for their kind of an area. That's generally what it cracks up to be. So, you know, not really a great thing, but there's another one somewhere on Lake Martin, which Lake Martin is right here. And Matthew, do you know where in the world on Lake Martin this was at? Because it wasn't far from the Kolija restaurant. Where in the world?
Yeah, I know where it's at. Let me get it real quick. Let's see here. Yeah, it was built
This
in the
one.
year I was born. Yeah, it's a $18 million house. That's what it was built for, at least allegedly. So yeah, that's it.
This one is it. $18 million. Who would live here on Lake Martin? I don't know. For $18 million, I have no clue. There was also another massive one that was built right there as well. But I think these were built before the 2008 recession, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah, it was built in 2000.
Yeah, but, you know, once again, a little bit odd. You know, it's like, also, holy moly, they got an airport right there.
Oh yeah, yeah, they've been having an airport right there. Like a lot of people that live on Lake Martin, like not all of them, but some of them, the ones that are like the mega millionaire type people that live in the house like that one, they fly in and out. Like they just go here to like spend a weekend or something, then they leave.
Well, that's absurd. Like, why in the world would you buy a house like that and then just fly in for a weekend? You know, why wouldn't that be your primary residence?
Rich beyond belief, I guess. They just they kind of do it just to say they did it.
Great heavens, it makes no sense to me. But let's see. Let's go back up to Birmingham. Where's that other house, Matthew? You know, the big one that we were, like, the Scrooshy house, like the actual Scrooshy house that was in Birmingham. Where was it?
That's on Altadena Road, which is off of Highway 280 near the summit.
Let's see. So the summit, right here. Altadena. Where in the world's Altadena? Whoa.
That's over there on the left, actually.
Altadena.
Man, you don't know your way around this place. We lived here for like 30-something years.
Man, I don't know any of the names of the streets. Like, here? Somewhere in here?
No. Let me get the address because you're gonna have a hard time finding it, I think. Let's see here. Let me get this.
Oh yeah, I found Altadena Road. I found it. It's right here. It's right here. So we go down this road and we look for the really big Scrooshy house. We look for Scrooshy. Where's Scrooshy house? Oh, that's the theological seminary. Let's go down the road. Altadena. Oh, we made it to the end of Altadena. Where was it? Where was it?
Let's see here. It's hard to find. Let's see. So I've got it. It's off of Longleaf Street, off of Altadena Road.
A Longleaf Street. Longleaf. We're looking for a leaf that is long. Long leaf. Leaf, it's long. Long leaf.
There it is.
Ah, yes. The Scrooshy Mansion. Right there. There it is. Can we get a street? Yeah, we actually can get a street view of that one. Oh, it's all overgrown. Heavens to Betsy. But it's in there. The Scrooshy house. It's...
I like how they just put that little real estate sign out front. I don't know how much this thing was going for, but it was obviously in the millions, like, obviously. But they put up that little Remax sign out there like it was just like a normal little house.
Yeah, we're just selling a little house. If you drive by and you're interested, let us know. If you have like 30 million to shell out, let us know for the Scrooshy house. But these sorts of houses are crazy. Honestly, man, it's like kind of like how the retirement systems of Alabama just keeps on buying out the biggest buildings in the state everywhere.
Yeah. I think. I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, you know, like you don't have to go far. You know, you just have to go down to Mobile, and the tallest building in the state's owned by the retirement systems of Alabama. Let me see. Where in the world is it? Yeah, it's this one. Yeah, it's literally called the RSA Tower. This one right here. Look at that. It's crazy. But anyways, with that, folks, we do need to get on into some more questions. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping back into our super chat questions here, this one goes to Rick Galenchin, who's our viewer from Canada, and thank you very much, Rick, for that $40 support, and we do appreciate that. He said, happy birthday, Matt, and thank you very much, Rick, for the happy birthday. I do appreciate that very much, and maybe we should have some extra happy birthdays, maybe one of these days, but I do appreciate that very much, Rick, and of course, a big shout out to you for the happy birthday wishes, and I do appreciate that. And Enforcer, what say you?
And a big happy birthday to Enforcer Matt. I was about to say to Rick Galenchin right there, but a big happy birthday to Enforcer Man. I got to thank you massively for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, I'm going to give a shout out to, I think, 5 people at a time that said happy birthday. I'm going to give a big shout out to Cypress96, who put in a $28 donation and said happy birthday, Matthew. And thank you very much, Cypress, for the happy birthday wishes as well. We also had a 25 from Just Chillin', who said happy 25th birthday, Enforcer Matt, and grab one from the chat. And we shall in just a moment, Just Chillin', and thank you as well. We also have a 25 from Alfred's mom, who said happy birthday, Enforcer Matt. Wishing you many more. And hopefully I do have some many more. Hopefully about, like 50 or 60 more. That'd probably be a good number. But thank you very much, Alfred's mom, as well. We also have a 20 from Wellness LSA Latvia, who said happy birthday, Matt. And also Uncle David, other nephew, who put in a 20 and said happy birthday, Enforcer. And trying to give Enforcer a little happy birthday as well. And thank you all very much. Wellness, Alfred's mom, Uncle David, other nephew, as well as Just Chillin' and Cypress for telling me happy birthday. And I do sincerely appreciate that very much. And we shall grab one from the live chat in honor of Just Chillin'. And this one is going to go to none other than Jonathan, who said, I caught wind today that China's refusing to let 2 Americans leave China. And what are your thoughts?
I haven't heard about that, but considering that China is, I think China's actually on a level 2 travel advisory. That actually, I think they might be on a level 3 or something like that. But that sounds a little bit interesting, and I would have to know a little bit more about that in detail to be able to make a good statement or judgment call on that, because I don't know about their specific situation, so I'd have to be brought up to speed and then bring in my personal inputs, because it's generally known, at least by the Department of State's warning, that the Chinese government or law enforcement could single out Americans that are in China to harass them. So generally not smart to travel there for those reasons. But if they're being unduly targeted for some diplomatic reason, then I believe that the United States should start to make a considerable issue about it, at least in my opinion. But I hope that does address that live chat well. And a big thanks to all 5 of y'all once again for the incredible support and wishing Enforcer Matt a happy birthday. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 20 from John, it's just John Valdez. And thank you very much, John, for that $20 support. He said, happy birthday, and you two provide very valuable info, and thanks, and have a great day.
Hey, and thank you so much for your support. And thank you for enjoying our provisions of vital information. We love to give it, and we are proud to do it. And so a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, I want to give a shout out to Philip Lanebull, as well as Dr. Philbus Cat, as well as, let's see here, In Hansen, and also Jason Greenwood for each saying for Matt's B-Day Fund and happy birthday to Enforcer Matt. And thank you all very much as well, all 4 of you, Philip, Dr. Philbus, as well as In Hansen and Jason, for telling me happy birthday as well. And I've got a ton of happy birthdays tonight, and I do appreciate it once again, and a huge shout out to all 4 of y'all as well. And Enforcer, what say you?
I got to thank y'all so much for the support, and I got to thank y'all all for wishing Enforcer Matt a happy birthday. He's hopefully he will have a very happy one today. It's generally it's almost over in 10 minutes, but hopefully he'll have many more decades of them. You know, like centuries of them, perhaps. Matthew, would you like to live to be 300 years old?
No, I'll pass personally.
Dude, what if we make you live like a Disney animatronic, where you get up like Walt Disney, you say, "Can you draw a mouse?" No, I don't draw a mouse anymore, or something like that. What if we did that?
Man, I'm good, man. I don't want to draw mouses.
Matthew's animatronic is gonna get up and go, "Do you have a band hammer anymore?" No, I don't have a band hammer anymore. And then my animatronic would be, "Do you yap anymore?" Yes, I do yap a lot. It's like I still yap. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best we can. A big thanks to y'all for the happy birthday wishes. And with that, it is time for us to move on to the next ones.
And our next one here goes to Gabby White, who puts in a 20 and says, Feliz cumpleaños. And I can't speak Spanish very well, so I'll probably butcher the hell out of that. That's happy birthday in Spanish, is it? Well, thank you very much, Senorita, for that happy birthday wishes right there. I do appreciate that, and Donata. Yeah, I think. But thank you very much,
That
Gabby.
means
Seriously
tomorrow.
speaking, for that support. Thank you, and let's see. Merry Christmas. I don't know how to
I'm
say
sorry.
thank you in
I'm sorry.
Spanish.
Denata means no problem. That actually means no problem.
Oh,
Sorry.
well, what's thank you?
Yeah, I guess, shoot. I'm not a
No,
great
I'm saying,
expert.
what is thank you?
Oh, that'd be, let's see. That'd be, damn, I'm drawing a blank right there. Let's see here. Shit, I don't know.
Por favor.
No, that's please. That's please right there. I can't think of the word for thank you. I can't think of it. Let's see. Gracias. There you go. There, damn. It's gracias, man. I was thinking of everything else in Spanish, but gracias. Damn.
Well, bonjour and gracias and danke, sure. Thank you very much.
And bon appetit. But with that, I thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Cause Gabby White, you're a little too cultured for us here Alabama folk. We don't know a damn thing about foreign languages. Like we don't know no Spanish or nothing of that damn language they call it Russian or Chinese. That's actually Mandarin. But beyond that, I gotta thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running, cause you're keeping the moonshine flowing. Because we're from Alabama, that's the joke. But anyways, big thanks to you so much once again. Hope that has addressed that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we have a 20 once again from Measure Man. And thank you, Measure Man, for the second support. He said, y'all expertly explain extremely explosive events every evening.
And I thank you so much for enjoying that measurement, and thank you for supporting it, because we always try our best. And I gotta say that while we always don't have a great level of success, I'll be damned, we're gonna keep at it. And so a big thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. Also, by the way, folks, I forgot to mention, Ozzy Osbourne did die today. I think he was 76 when he died. But a lot of people have been bringing it up. Unfortunately, I never really listened to his music a lot. I think the only thing I heard was Crazy Train, and that was it. But very unfortunate to hear, because I do know that he's a well-respected artist for his era, and apparently was a trailblazer in that genre of music. So very unfortunate to hear about his passing. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Born in Ukraine, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Born in Ukraine, for that support. They said, I wish you a happy birthday, Matt. And I think they said, Slav Ukraine. It said something here in Ukrainian, because of course they're Ukrainian, and they can speak Ukrainian, but I can't read Ukrainian. That's the problem. But thank you very much, though, for that support, and also the kind words and the happy birthday wishes. And Enforcer, what say you?
Mnogo lita. Yeah, like that's what it said. But I do thank you for the support, Born in Ukraine. Hopefully I didn't butcher that too badly. But beyond that, I gotta thank you once again, because you wished my brother Matthew a Mnogai leader. Look at that right there. Matthew, she's wishing that you had a leader. What you know, that's just the kindest thing ever. And I gotta thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, and wishing Enforcer Matt a happy birthday. And with that, it's time for us to get on to the next one.
And also, a big shout out to Jay, who put in a $20 donation. He said, birthday twins, and let's go. And also, happy birthday to you as well. You got the exact same birthday I've got right there. So I hope you're having a good birthday. And thank you very much for the birthday wishes to me as well. I do appreciate the reciprocity here. I appreciate that reciprocation right here. I do appreciate that very much, as I butchered the hell out of that word right there.
Just get in a redneck accent. We can excuse it, you know, like you can sit there and be like, thank you for getting me out of predicament, you know, or something like, you know, if
Man,
you do that accent.
I was about to start cussing there for a minute by accident, but I caught myself. But Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta thank you for your support, Jay, and it's great to know that y'all twins on the birthday on the 22nd of July. And I gotta say, thank you for the support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, it's time for us to move on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to none other than, and I'm moving up here back to the top of our spreadsheet. This one goes to Jason Greenwood, who puts in a 20. He said, happy birthday, Enforcer Matt. Also, Destiny Edgington put in a 20 as well and said, happy birthday to Matthew. Also, Andrew Barbara put in a 20 and said, for Matthew's birthday cake. And also, Brian Broussard put in a 20 and said, happy birthday to Matt. And thank you very much, Jason, Destiny, Andrew, and Brian, for that support. I do appreciate it very much. And it was a pretty decent birthday, and I do appreciate the happy birthday wishes as well. And thank you all very much. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to thank you so much to all four of y'all for the support, because y'all are helping this channel to keep running and helping to keep the Enforcer Matt happy on his birthday. And so a big thanks to y'all once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, it's time for us to move on to the next one. I'm a mistake ass, so what's happening in the world? Well, you're kind of a little late. We've been talking about that for like 2 hours at the beginning of the stream. Maybe you want to be kind and rewind. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And up next, a big shout out to Elliot Pinkham, who put in a 20 and did not leave a comment. But thank you very much, Elliot, for that support. And I did see, I think he said in the live chat separately from the super chat, he said, I can't believe you are so young. You are just young whippersnappers. And it's shocking to learn, but very nice to know. And also, thank you very much, Elliot, for the kind words. I believe you said that. I think. Hopefully, I'm not getting mixed up with somebody else. But thank you very much for the support. And Enforcer, what say you?
I got to thank you so much for supporting. Yes, we are young whippersnappers. We are snapping. And yapping. And I got to thank you so much for the support. I got to thank you for congratulating Enforcer Matt for a birthday today. He had a 25th one. There's not many of those that come around, you know. It's not a lot of them, you know. It's a fleeting number. Every birthday you have is one less you'll get. You know, it's a very unfortunate thing. But beyond that, I do thank you for the support. I hope this channel to keep running. I hope that it's addressed that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat here, while I do press reorganize on the spreadsheet, this one goes to none other than Dark Sheep, who puts in a 20 and said, no question, but happy birthday and LSA. And also thank you for the happy birthday wishes as well.
And thank you for the support, Dark Sheep, and wishing Enforcer Matt a happy birthday. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Plazoth, who puts in a 12, and also Melissa Renee LSA, who each said, happy birthday, Matt, and also happy birthday, and we're birthday. Oh, wait a minute. Melissa Renee LSA is birthday twin as well. Everybody's got birthdays on July the 22nd. That's crazy right there. I didn't even know, but happy birthday to you as well, Melissa. Hope you're having a good one. And thank you, Plazoth, as well, for the happy birthday wishes. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta say a big thanks to both of you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it's a great thing, and also the happy birthday wishes are greatly appreciated. And so with that, a big thanks to you all once again, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Banio, who puts in a 10, and he said, you guys got me into studying geopolitics, and thank you very much.
Oh, that's cool to hear, actually. I gotta thank you so much for the support, and of course, studying geopolitics. So a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does dress that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we have a 10 from Gary Bott. And Gary said, happy birthday, Enforcer Bat. We also had a 10 from Douglas L. Hemingway. He said, happy birthday as well. And then we had a 10 from P3X146, who said, cake. And I do like cake. I tell you what, I do like it a lot. Let me get rid of this bot. But thank you all, Gary Bot. Gary Bot, not the bot, but this is Gary Bot. Also Douglas and P3X for the happy birthday wishes. And I do appreciate that very much. But Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta thank each and every one of y'all for the happy birthday wishes to Enforcer Matt. He is, of course, greatly appreciative, and I'm appreciative as well that many people have sent him a great deal of happy birthday wishes today. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 10 from Nathan Shen. And he said, for Matt or the Enforcer.
Hey, and I thank you for the support, but that's for Enforcer Matt tonight. It was his birthday. So with that, a big thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a $19 support that just came in from Evgeny B. And thank you very much, Evgeny, for that support as well. I do appreciate that. He said, happy birthday, Enforcer Matt. Stay healthy and sharp. And don't believe the official history, which was totally rewritten upside down. Happy birthday, brother. God bless you, and God bless America. And thank you very much, Evgeny, for that support. And honestly, for believing the history, I don't know. Generally, I believe history. Like, generally, I get the whole thing about people saying written by the victors and all that stuff. And I'm sure there is some truth to it because obviously, you know, if people are writing things, they want it to be favorable to themselves. But there's some good and bad things in our history books. So I would tend to believe it. I would tend to believe most of it. Maybe a couple of little things here and there, but generally speaking, probably pretty accurate. But thank you very much for the happy birthday wishes. And Enforcer, what say you?
I thank you for the birthday wishes, but while in the official history, well, it's an interesting thing with it, you see, because a lot of people don't really have the attention span for a real big history lesson. They kind of dumb it down a little bit for most people. And so a lot of them end up learning really about history, and then they're like, wait a minute. This wasn't the dumbed down, simplified version I learned. The whole thing must be a lie. And the reality is, it ain't no lie. It's just that they ain't wanting to bore you with, you know, all the little things that go into history. You know, someone like me, you know, you read about it, you know about it. It's a pretty straightforward thing once you get into the study of history. But the issue is that for a lot of people, they don't want to do that. So then they got to simplify it for them, and then they find out something later that they don't like. So then some people say that history is a lie and nothing is real, but it is entirely real. I mean, it's 100% real. I can tell you as a history major that it's real. The issue is, though, is that the main problem is that the government's trying to figure out, okay, so for the simplified, dumbed-down version that we're going to tell everyone, what's the big points that we're going to hit at, and what's the ones we're just going to ignore, or the ones that we're really going to simplify a lot? And then that's where people run into some issues. And you know, the thing is, though, is that if you really told everyone the absolute depth of history, there ain't no moral lessons to be learned, you know. That's one of the big issues, you know, because if you sit there and you talk about, you know, like, for example, the American expansion westwards, and you kind of include the fact that the Native Americans might have been the ones to attack the European colonials first, you know, with like the massacre of Jamestown in 1626 and stuff like that, that they don't really fit too well, because then it's like, well, what's the lesson to be learned? So then they kind of like, you know, they just kind of skirt over those things, and then they say, you know, it's kind of a little one-sided, although it's more so of a gray area, because really in history, there's no such thing as except for in rare instances, like, you know, for example, the Armenian genocide or the Holocaust, a clear black and white of right and wrong. But in other cases, there's a lot of gray area, and then a lot of people don't really know how to interpret that gray area, and then go, okay, well, that wasn't really as straightforward as I'd like it to be, you know. And then, you know, it's a whole thing with that. History is generally very accurate if you get into the study of it. The issue is that a lot of people just don't want to hear the nitty-gritty details of the whole thing, and so then you got to simplify it, and then you got to figure out how you're going to simplify it and how you're going to tell people about it. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And also, I saw someone say history is 100% written by the victims. I don't know. I don't know, because it's
I
actually
mean,
a lot.
technically it does.
Technically, it isn't, because like
Well,
historically, the Nazis had a really big part in writing the post-war World War II history, because it's the Nazis that actually put forward the concept in everyone's minds that the Nazi German army was actually very advanced for their time. It was them who did that. It was not us. It was them. And
yeah,
if
well, we
you,
wrote it though. I mean, the idea might have come from maybe something they said, but it was written by the Western sides. I mean, we didn't let that government write the history.
No, we didn't let the government write the history, but a lot of those guys that got out of the Nuremberg trials and either were exonerated or they went to prison for a couple of years and got out, they ended up writing books, and they ended up becoming bestsellers. And those bestsellers ended up changing the way that people look at the. That's why this fascination with the Nazis is so big, actually, in the modern day, is because those guys would write their books, they would become bestsellers, and then everyone would start listening to them. You know, bona fide Nazis, they still largely believe in Nazi ideology and everything still, so they still want to glorify their country and their government and everything, so they make it sound a lot better than it really was. When in reality, only 10% of the German army had a running petrol motor inside of it, and the rest of it was still horse-drawn. You know, like a lot of people don't really know about that side of things, at least with that, or for the matter, like, for example, the Confederacy, after they lost the Civil War, I mean, hell, they pretty much wrote the books on how a lot of people would interpret the Civil War, post-Civil War, for the next 120 years or so. It's only been recently that a lot of that was laid out has been contradicted. Because if you go back and look at the history books back in the day, there was a great deal of sugarcoating to the Confederate cause that, at least by those people, made it sound like they were justified, although by every metric in the modern day, we clearly see from a moral standpoint they're not, and they weren't. So, you know, there's actually a lot of that happens in history. Some of it, though, is like completely erased, like the Armenian genocide, which may as well have been whitewashed from history with what the Ottomans did to the Armenians in the middle of World War I. That one is really hardly covered at all, because even the Turkish Republic that came afterwards hardly spoke of it, and considering that the Armenians were absorbed into the Soviet Union not long after, they also hardly got to speak of it. But there's a lot of that actually happens throughout history, where the losers actually end up writing a little bit of their own history and change the way that's perceived for incredibly long periods of time.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe so.
I mean, maybe so. And I see someone said, actually, the Germans had very sophisticated war machines. No, not really. Like at least on paper, yeah. But in real life practice, they didn't. Like the Tigers, the Panthers, all of those advanced tanks that they had, their transmissions would only survive for about 50 to 200 miles of operational service. And by then, the transmission literally grinded itself apart. And also, the engines would sometimes explode just because of the strain that they were under. Sometimes the turret gearing mechanisms to actually rotate the turret would fail if you were going uphill. So the turret would literally break itself and then just spin to the backwards position. Generally, German tanks were good on paper, a lot like Soviet tech was. It's good on paper, but very much over-engineered or way ahead of its time for the technological limitations, and then it ends up becoming a failure. And that's something that a lot of people don't really know about World War II, is that a lot of German equipment it was good on paper, and the guns were great, and the sights were great for those guns to fire, but everything else about the tanks was abysmal for the large part compared to their counterparts in the West. Like, yeah, Sherman may have been a literal roaming Roman candle for the large part. If you hit it, it goes up. But the thing is that a lot of American tankers could easily bail out and survive something like that. The Germans, on the other hand, couldn't. A Sherman tank could run for thousands of miles with very little maintenance. A German tank runs for a couple of hundred, the thing literally rips itself apart. And those sorts of things aren't really looked at in the history books, because everyone goes, big gun, great optics, must have been a great tank. But there's so much more to everything involved that a lot of people don't talk about. And then people say the U-boats were advanced. And not really. I mean, like, the U-boats were comparable to any other class, like the Gato class that was in service with the U.S. Navy at the time. Our torpedoes were terrible, but our submarine technology was on par with the Germans during the war. The thing with the U-boats is that they were effective when they had great unchallenged doctrinal practice. But once the Allies figured out exactly how German sub-doctrine worked, U-boats became completely ineffective by the latter part of, well, really the mid part of 1943 or even the early part, and then they ceased to be a threat, even no matter how advanced they were getting. And then, of course, the Germans would come out and be like, oh, but the Type 90, or it's so advanced, and it never was used, hardly, or at all. And so, it's like, well, it's like that wasn't really too advanced, but it's like it was hardly even used. Or, for example, the Juno engines on the Me-262, they could only sustain about 30 minutes of flight before they literally burned the bearings completely, and the jet engines had to be entirely replaced. So it's like, yeah, an Me-262 was okay, but it wasn't that much faster than a P-51, and it also was only operational for about 30 minutes. It's that sort of a deal. And also someone said, how about the Tigers? The Tigers, same thing I was saying earlier a while ago. Transmissions would shred themselves after about 200 miles. The engines were woefully underpowered, meaning that any sort of an uphill grade on a road was near impossible for a Tiger without assistance. Tigers also were quite heavy for their era, so a lot of bridges couldn't support their weight, so that was also a pretty big issue. And then another issue with the Tiger was that it wasn't actually that strong. I hate to tell this to people, it's not strong actually, because the Tiger 1 did not have sloped armor anywhere. All of its armor was actually literal, like, straight angle, 90-degree angle armor. So if you hit it anywhere, high chance was you might not penetrate the armor, but the welds, and this is a very well accounted thing for any of the Tiger 1s that the Soviets or the Allies came upon, and in the Western Allies, the US, Britain, and France, came up on very little of these, because almost none of these were used in Western Europe. Pretty much all of them were used in Eastern Europe. But the few that we came up against, a Sherman 75 could actually punch through the front armor of a Tiger. Or, if it was also very lucky, you could actually hit this upper front plate, and the whole thing's welds would rip apart, and the whole front plate would just fall off. And then you could machine gun the crew inside, because they're literally exposed to the wide open. The turret crew, the driver, the bow gunner, all of them were open, exposed at that point. You could just gun them down. And that's something that nobody really talks about a lot at all, is that a short 75 on a Sherman could actually deal with a Tiger tank if you hit it appropriately, because the front armor on a Tiger is 90 millimeters up on this upper plate, and a Sherman had about 110 millimeters of penetration on a normal armor piercing round. So you had about 20 millimeters of extra penetration that would allow for most of the armor piercing shell to make it through the upper plate and right into the tank. So technically, like, the gun's good, the optics were good, because the optics were made by Zeiss, so they're incredibly good, but everything else about the tank's mediocre or poor. So that's kind of the issue. When you look at a Sherman, it's truly it's great all around. Like, and this is something that a lot of people find controversial, but this thing runs forever. It has sloped armor, so it's getting more armor value than normal for its armor plate, because it's angled. It adds more millimeters to the general protection when hit. It also is very ergonomic. It's easy to get in and out of, which is important if the tank gets hit and you have to bail. The gun's quick firing. There's a decent amount of room in the turret if you're using a short 75 to actually handle and load ammunition. It has good optics, good visibility, and also these things were mass-produced in incredibly large numbers. This is by far, qualitatively, the best tank of the war was the Sherman, in every way. It had really not a lot of issues, beyond the fact that crews said that it was like a iron coffin, but generally every tank in World War II was an iron coffin. It's just that in America we have really high standards, so then we say it's an iron coffin because it gets hit and it goes up. But if you hit a German tank, like a Panzer IV, or a Tiger, or a T-34, or a Churchill, or a Cromwell, it's also going to go up like a Roman candle, because there was no detached ammunition storage like a burnout panel like there is in the modern day, so all of them went up like candles. But anyways, I hope that does address that well, but that is a big thing to this day that the Germans wrote their own history on, is that the German army was more advanced than it really was. And people still believe that to this day, although if you look at all of the figures from the Wehrmacht, really all of them, like the Wehrmacht, the SS, all of them, there was not a lot of motorization even at all in most German army units. Let's see, German army let's see, German Army Eastern Front. Let me see if I can go show y'all some pictures from World War II. And let me see if I can show you all this, because there is going to be some pictures where they're actually using horse-drawn wagons. Generally, German propaganda crews would not take pictures of the horse-drawn wagons much, but when they did, it was actually representative of the whole situation of the German army. So, let me see if I can find one. Dang. Where in the world would it be? Ah, here we go. Right there. You see that tiger right there? Right alongside that, that's what the actual German army was horse-drawn wagons and carriages. Because 90% of the German army didn't even have an Opel Blitz in the unit. So it was all horse-drawn.
Interesting.
Yes, very interesting. But with that, it is time for us to get on to more questions. So what do we have, Matthew? What do we have?
All right, so jumping back into our super chat questions, this one goes to Doug Chumley, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Doug, as well, for that support. And Doug said, thanks for the great streams, fellas, and happy birthday to Matt. And thank you very much, Doug, for the happy birthday. And he said, please take one from the chat.
And thank you so much for the incredible support, Doug Chumley. And thank you for the happy birthday wishes to Enforcer Man. And we will take one from the chat. And so what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so the one from the chat is going to go to AF Kaplan, who said, if Zelenskyy changes his mind and decides to veto the corruption bill, could the Rada override his veto?
Technically, he can't change his mind, because once you sign something into law, there's no way to go, I retract that, let me veto it now. The process is pretty much over with at this point. So I hope that does address that live chat the best I can. A big thanks to you once again for sponsoring that live chat. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 10 from Stella, who said, I'm going to take a shot every time the enforcer says significant, and wish me luck. And also, happy birthday to Matt. And thank you very much for the happy birthday wishes as well.
You're looking for liver poisoning. But beyond that, I thank you for support. And sometimes I get hung up on words. Like I think mine's significant, Matthew's is major. But we usually get hung up on some word, because it's really hard to come up with unique words in 3-hour monologues nightly. But I do thank you for support, and I would not play that drinking game if you were concerned for your health. But a big thanks to you once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 10 from Uncle David, other nephew, once again, who puts in the 10. It said, please say significant.
And it's significant. It's significant, dagnabbit. But a big thanks to you so much once again. And we're on to the next one.
And we have a 10 from Kachulian343, who said, happy birthday, Matt, and here's some money to buy yourself a slice of cake or something.
Hey, and a big shout out to Kachulian, and a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep running. And I gotta say, a big happy birthday to Enforcer Matt once again. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And moving on to our next one, this one goes to Just a Plumber, who puts in a 10, and also Thomas D'Orazio, who puts in a 10 as well. They said, happy birthday, Matt. And Just a Plumber said, a fellow cancer. He said, if you're into that stuff. Me personally, I'm not really like huge into that stuff. Me personally, in fact, I'm really not even sure what the exact name of that stuff is. I've heard of it before, but I don't know even what it's really called. But thank you very much, Just a Plumber, Thomas, for that support and happy birthday wishes. I do appreciate it. But Enforcer, what say you?
While Matthew's a cancer, I'm an aquarium. But I got to thank you for support and helping this channel to keep running. And thank you to both of y'all for the best birthday wishes to Enforcer Matt. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And a big shout out to De Minimis RT, who put in a 5. Also, Eternal Core, who put in a 5 as well. And also, SD NSO Group Unit 46. And they each said, happy birthday to Matt. And thank you very much to De Minimis, Eternal, and SD for that support. And we do appreciate that very much. And we also have a 10 from Nathan Schneider, who said, how about they built a drone around a barrel and action? Depending on the recoil, a drone could handle. A 12 gauge down to a 4-10 would do, since they get so close, and then you don't lose a drone to take a drone.
They actually tried that, but the recoil usually makes it pretty hard to manage for the most part, and also making larger drones makes them less maneuverable and also more visible to detection. So I hope that does address it the best I can. A big thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 5 from the Third Deviation. And he said, happy birthday to you, Matt. Thank you very much, good sir. He said, thank you for the hard work and the amazing broadcasts.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support, and thank you for enjoying our broadcast, The Third Deviation. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
And we have a 5 from LSA Sergeant Figment. And he puts in that 5 and says, happy birthday to you, Matt. And thank you very much, Sarge. He said, thoughts on that new air defense created by Australia.
I got to thank you for support, LSA Sergeant Figment. And it sounds like they got some NASAMs, generally a fairly ubiquitous system in the West, but good to hear that they got one because it's great for point defense. So a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And also, folks, make sure to hit that like button. That is always the orders of LSA Sergeant Figment. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 5 from United Kempo Martial Arts Academy. And he said, as Russian banks and businesses collapse, it would be a good idea to avoid standing near windows in Russia because this will make Putin more desperate.
Honestly, yeah, that's true. They got to be careful about that one because nobody likes to be around windows. Nobody likes windows. But a big thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 5 from $2 Garage. He said, new Russian tank has impenetrable armor, Putinium wood.
That's the new Stalinium. But I thank you for the support and helping the channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have 2 supports from Kachulian343 who put in 2 $5 donations. And thank you very much for those 2 supports. He said, Putin knows the Russian economy is screwed. And if that's the case, the only way to make sense of him doubling down on the war is he's insane or he knows that China will help.
That's an interesting analysis. Might actually end up being true. But it's always hard to say because he could just be doubling down because if the Russian economy is going to collapse, it's going to collapse either way. So might as well try and get a victory out of the clutches of defeat. Maybe that's what he's looking at this point. But still, a big thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we have a 5 from Kachulian once again, who said if Zelenskyy wanted to be a dictator, he would have started laying the groundwork for that long before now. And I don't think this is wise politically, though.
I would agree on both of those points. So thank you for the support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 5 from Crossbones43. And they said, I appreciate the hard work you guys put in and day out. And my son is Matt's age and is in the 82nd Airborne Division and proud Army dad here.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool. That's really neat. The 82nd Airborne Division. I think they're in Romania right now, I believe. But I do thank you massively for support. And also, thank you for the birthday wishes to Enforcer Matt as well. And also, I got to say, big thanks to you so much once again for enjoying our hard work because we put hard work in every day to make this thing possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 5 from Andrew Honeycutt. And he said, happy birthday to Gaius Julius Enforcius Maticus Alabamicus, and long live the Republic, and long live the Lee Spring Army. And thank you very much, Andrew, for that support. Sir Andrew Honeycutt, Julius Gaius Maticus Alabamicus, Andrew. And we appreciate that very much. And Enforcer, what say you?
I got to thank you for the support, Andrew Honeycutt. And a big happy birthday to Enforcer Matt once again. And long live the Lee Spring Army, and long live the Republic. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And a big shout out to Sergeant Saki for putting in a $4 donation. I do not see a comment attached, but thank you very much, good sir, for that support. We also have a 2 from GLXW, who said, hello, everyone, and USA. And I do agree with you. God bless the USA, and hello to you as well. We also have another 2 from LSA Sergeant Figment. He said, LSA, hit the like button. That's an order.
And that is an order from LSA Sergeant Figment. Hit the like button, people. Hit it. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 2 from Rick O. We have 2 of them, actually. And Rick said, happy birthday, Matt. And thank you very much, Rick, as well, for that support and the kind wishes of the happy birthday. He also said, Matt, how will and did you celebrate your birthday? Honestly, didn't do anything, to be perfectly honest with you. Just sort of like hung out all day and sort of did some work here and there and sort of did nothing, actually. But you know, it's just the way it is when you get older, I guess. Birthdays are sort of just there. But, you know, it kind of is what it is. But thank you very much, Rick, for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I have to agree with that. But hopefully we'll be able to see better birthdays in the future. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 2 from AXLR, who said, founded out former late neighborhood, financed Pinochet. Where do you live? That's my question.
Hell?
Where in the world are you living?
Augusto Pinochet from like Chile? Like that guy? That is interesting. Financed him too. Does he work for the CIA perchance? Because I know they kind of financed him a little. But beyond that, I do thank you for the support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we have a 2 from Hector Rodriguez. And Hector said, happy birthday, Mr. Matt, and Feliz Navidad. And happy birthday, and also Merry Christmas to you too, Hector. Thank you very much for the kind words. I do appreciate it. We also have a 2 from P. Cat, akin to P. Diddy, I guess you could say.
No Diddy.
First initial P. They said, happy birthday, old man. Old man, LOL. And thank you very much. And I'm thank you very much for that birthday wishes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We also have a 1 from Dean London, who said, happy birthday to you, Matt. And thank you, Dean, as well. well, and A1 from Plazat, who rounds out our entire Super Chat segment. But thank you all very much once again for all the happy birthday wishes. And Enforcer, what say you?
I got to thank each and every one of y'all for the support because y'all been helping out this channel massively. And a big thanks to y'all for the happy birthday wishes to Enforcer Matt. So a big thanks to each and every one of y'all once again. And with that, it is time for us to move on into the live chat segment. Due to time constraints tonight, because we're getting close to being overtime, we're going to be addressing the Morse code Dakotas, 3 live chats, and then we're going to be rounding this thing out. But we actually have another super chat in here real quick, so let's get that one before we get into the live chats.
So our last super chat here goes to Tyler Harris, who puts in the 5. He said, happy birthday, Enforcer Matt. Love you guys. And y'all always give me something to look forward to every night, and long live the LOC. And also, I'm glad to hear that, by the way. That's very kind words. I look forward to doing the stream every night as well, as much as the audience likes showing up for it also. So thank you very much for the happy birthday wishes, Tyler. And Enforcer, what say you?
I got to thank you so much for the massive support, Tyler Harris. And I got to say a big thanks to you for wishing Enforcer Matt a happy birthday. And of course, long live the Lee Spring Army, and the Lee Spring Army will never die. So a big thanks to you so much once again. And with that, Matthew, take it away into the live chat segment. What do we got?
All right, so our Morse code decoders tonight were Paul Schultz, Kevin J, Mason Miami, Joni Dog, Norm Pritchett, Arabelle Garbo, and her royal fluffiness. They said the Morse code says, how do the Russians say they are winning and they go to 4-day work weeks? Very sus and LLT LSA.
And ding, 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 and that is the sound of money, and y'all hit that dead on the nail. That was the Morse code message of the night. I got to congratulate y'all once again, the Lee Spring Army Signal Corps, for continuing to get that correct for 1,245 days in a row. Truly impressive stuff, and we, of course, are massively appreciative of y'all's amazing abilities to be able to do such a thing. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well, and with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one is going to go to, let's see here. This one goes to Easy Does It, who says, is it bullcrap that one of the Patriot systems were lost in last night's attack on Ukraine by the Russians?
We have not been able to get any confirmation of that in terms of video and picture evidence, so we're largely counting that as misinformation until we can get video or picture evidence to prove the claim. So I hope that does address that the best we can, and with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Retro Mom, and they said, I'm wondering why it wasn't just left up to the SBU to take care of those Russian spies in the corruption division, since they're catching them. So any thoughts? Honestly, Retro Mom, that's the thoughts of a lot of people that have a problem with it, is how come if the SBU found the Russian spies, then why'd they go ahead and transfer the authority of the anti-corruption agency over to the prosecutor's office under the president's power? Like that to me was where part of the disconnect came in that didn't really add up or make sense. And I think that's where people are drawing the line and saying, hey, well, you could have left the organization independent and rooted the spies out and left it the way it was. But, they chose to root the spies out, and then they chose to basically strip the agency of its power independently. So, it is what it is. That's something for the Ukrainians to sort out. We got enough problems here in the USA that we need to sort out. So I'll be honest with you, I don't want to take on their political problems as well. That's something for the Ukrainian people to figure out. As long as Ukraine is fulfilling Western interest, that's good with me. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to agree with that for the large part as well. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so who is the lucky last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is SPC Angel Figueroa. And they said, do you think that these protests going on inside of Ukraine is going to destabilize Ukraine enough for Russia to take advantage in some type of significant way?
I don't think so. It sounds like a smaller protest inside of Kyiv of only a few thousand people. So it's not large enough to be able to stabilize the country, in my opinion. And it generally is just a normal sort of a diplomatic unrest that you would find in any sort of a democratic country. So nothing great enough to be able to stabilize the state of Ukraine, at least in my opinion. But with that, folks, we've actually reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank you all so much once again for watching. It's been an absolute honor and a pleasure to be able to run this stream for all of y'all. We've actually had 99,000 viewers before the stream ended and a peak viewership of 12.9 thousand people. We are entirely honored and appreciative to have had each and every single one of y'all here tonight, and we thank y'all greatly for celebrating Enforcer Matt's birthday on this very day. 25th birthday. You're not going to have another one like it. So with that, a big congratulations to each and every one of y'all for being here tonight to celebrate that birthday with Enforcer Matt. And of course, we will be seeing you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of news from around the world. If there is a short war news video to make, I will be the one making it. And if there is not, y'all can expect us to be on air at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe. Slava Ukraini, long live the Republic, and long live the Lee Spring Army.
And with that, folks, we will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern on our next Nightly War News stream, and also maybe midday tomorrow if there's enough news to cover. Right now, it's kind of a weird time in the news because it comes out mainly in the evening and not really during the midday, so it's really not adding up time-wise to really make a lot of short war videos these days. But once we have that chance, we'll be right back to it and back on the short war grind, as they call it, and putting those out daily. But once again, I want to say this, sincerely, a big thank you to everybody that said happy birthday tonight. I do sincerely appreciate that, and it does mean a lot. So appreciate that very much. And with that, Slava Ukraine, Hear 'em Slava, get some rest, and good night.